Hey everyone, I just want to say a huge thank you to all of you for helping me reach 100 subscribers. I honestly couldn't have done this without your love, support, and constant encouragement. Every like, comment, and subscribe means a lot to me. Now let's keep this journey going. Our next target is 200 subscribers, and I know we can do it together. If you enjoy my content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's grow as a family. Thank you once again. At Marineford, Marco makes the ultimate sacrifice, taking the killing blow meant for Luffy. But death doesn't end the life of a phoenix. Instead of fading away, he's reborn in an entirely different world. A world of chakra, shinobi, and hidden villages. And worst of all, he wakes up as Naruko Uzumaki, the Nine-Tails Jinchuriki. Now a former Whitebeard commander trapped in a ninja's body, Marco must survive Konoha's politics, master chakra instead of devil fruits, and deal with a giant fox sealed inside him. The ninja world thinks it understands the Nine Tails. Disclaimer. This story do not belong to me. The author is Of Flaming Feathers and Bloodstained Furs by Zelga Lim Lee. Respect to author.
Chapter 29. Part 28. Even if he didn't fight the two former Hokages, his health suddenly took a turn for the worst. He's finally feeling his age. He can understand Kaharu and Homura's concerns. Knowing Jiraiya, he'd rather face the wrath of all the women he peeked upon than take the position left behind by his very own student. Thus there is one more person he can think of to entrust the village with. The question is, will she accept? I'll talk to her, even if I have to tie her by foot, I'll make her listen. Giving his student a bland look, he took his pipe out and cleaned it methodically. I don't want her to feel obligated just because she'll learn about my condition. The Sannin may have added a few derogatory remarks about the other member of their former squad. Not that Senju Tsunade will ever know of this conversation. Just the same, he requested the other man to find her and hopefully she'll have a change of heart and come back home. He did pause upon hearing Jiraiya's request about bringing someone along. Are you sure about that? He doesn't know if the pirate will agree to the said arrangement even if their upcoming departure is in the horizon. But from what he heard, Sasuke wanted to come with them and train in paradise. Especially now. Hopefully what he told the boy didn't change his perception about the village. What about the Uchiha? Did you really told him everything? Jiraiya asked as he tilts his head and silently studied the various machinery connected to his body. With a sigh, he explained his reasoning. Not that he is justifying his actions. Knowing that his time is limited, he hopes and pray that the brothers will forgive him. For all his shortcomings, all their mistakes. A very wistful thinking. When she woke up that day, Naruto felt that something is very different. Aside from the fact that Tem still hasn't shown himself ever since the invasion. But her phoenix assured her that he's fine and have some personal things he needed to take care of. Marco also has that faraway look in his eyes. Like something is bothering him. And surprisingly enough, the traitor, former Kabuto, noted absent-mindedly that her pet learned something interesting and he'll probably tell her once everything are about to sort itself out. Last night, Pervy Sage talked to her as well and made her prepare for a very important mission. There is someone they need to find and talk to who can help Gigi's worsening condition. He also mentioned about her guests and a certain gateway opening in a few weeks. Marco may have reacted badly and thrown the man out their house. It was the first time she saw him like that. Thatch gapes distressingly beside Haku who ignores the commotion while drinking her tea. She gotta learn how to do that. Quietly, she left the table after quickly finishing her meal and prepared the things she needed to bring on her trip. She did heard Marco coming into the room and stand silently behind her. Through their bond, she can feel his apology for his earlier behavior. But no words came out of his mouth. Still it scares her. And knowing that he really need to leave, leaving her alone in this village, makes everything so complicated since she doesn't want him to go. Even if they previously talked about it. Just so, the phoenix took her in his arms. Holding her close. As the quietness of the room is starting to bother her, she places her hand over his and added softly, "You can always visit, right?" Humming in response, Marco turned her around and held her face affectionately. "You are never going to get rid of me that easily, Yoi. Because you're mine now, and I'm not letting you go." Surprise lighting her features with her pirate silently observing her reaction, Naruto knew she should say something. Marco's declaration did made her feel. She must say anything. Makes her feel wanted. Closing her mouth, she tried again but came out empty. So she decided to let their bond do the talking. Leaning her face closer to his touch, her gaze softened and smiled at him. "Yes." Marco chuckled and tugs her closer as he places a kiss on top of her head. She mustn't let this fear control her. They both won't let each other go knowing how selfish they are. That's more than enough. The next day in a less than traveled road, north of Konohagakure. Two shadowed figures appeared out of nowhere and walked down the path towards a certain village. Both are wearing straw hats with tassels covering their faces to shield against the harsh winds of travel or possibly to keep their identity hidden, and dark-colored cloaks with red clouds. A random merchant who happened to be fixing their broken cart accidentally took a glimpse at the larger man who returned his look with a feral grin showing sharp teeth. "What's wrong?" the merchant's companion asks as she places a cover on top of their wares that they will be selling in the next village. "Honey." Calling her husband, the female places her hand on his shoulder and tries to look for anything that might have caught his attention. The road was empty, but despite that, she feels secure knowing that the roads surrounding Konohagakure is protected by their shinobis. Shaking his head to clear his thoughts, what is he looking at again? The merchant continues his task knowing how his wife will nag him for being too slow. The men he saw seems to disappear from his memories. Unknown to him, the men he did saw are perched at the top of the highest branch overlooking that very same road. The smaller man crosses his arms annoyingly towards the other who laughs out in response. "I could have just killed him, you know." Turning away, he can almost see the village from this distance. The very same village he never expected to visit again. And yet, he came back. Rumors started to spread about Konoha's third Hokage. So he decided to visit and remind him. Good thing that their mission involves a certain fox. He just hoped that the Sandaime kept his word. Sasuke mustn't know the truth. "So, shall we go and find the nine-tailed brat?" Hoshigaki Kisame asks with that bloodthirsty look in his eyes. Twin red orbs glances back at him and nodded. And so, Uchiha Itachi finally came home. Some undisclosed cemetery, west of Konoha. "I knew I'd see you here." Sasuke grunted in response and eyed the speaker sullenly. "What are you doing here?" A vein popped from her forehead and Sasuke temporarily saw stars after the older teen hits him in the head. Nursing his bump, he glared at her murderously. Chuckling amusedly, the newcomer sits beside him and handed him a bucket of water. "The children saw you leave the compound with dark clouds surrounding your head. And he did ask me to follow and talk to you. Make sure you didn't do anything stupid." "I'm not brooding," Sasuke grumbled and took the cleaning materials she brought and started cleaning the graves of his parents. He knows that their bodies, everyone that died that day, were cremated to protect their bloodline. But from what he learned, there are some of his clansmen whose eyes was pilfered just after their deaths. Marco was forced to hold him down because his emotions are chaotic. Uncontrollable. One of the possible reasons for the third's unexpected health issues. He felt guilty afterwards, but Hokage-sama waves it off dismissively. "As expected, you really are a conqueror." He doesn't understand what the phoenix means. The Dobi may know more, but he'll think and talk to her about it later. Konoha to Sasuke. "Hello, are you still with me?" Pushing her waving hands away, Sasuke grunted annoyingly. "Is going outside too dangerous for you?" Focusing on his task, he avoided the scrutinizing gaze of the person he told was dead. The only other person he cares about. Uchiha Izumi's eyes twinkle in amusement. Knowing that the boy before her is ignoring the question, she could not stop herself from observing his every reaction. The changes of the once prissy boy who hated everyone aside from his beloved older brother had changed tremendously. Humming a song she learned in her childhood, she gave the boy some privacy and allowed him time to pay his respects. From what she remembered, Sasuke received the blunt end of Itachi's so-called betrayal, that he failed to function normally for a month or so. Well, the boy crosses his arms and stared at her. Perhaps he is trying to remember the face she used to have. The seal protects us from any unwanted scrutiny. Even the Uchiha's famed Sharingan will fail to break this Fuin-based genjutsu. Giving Sasuke a pat in the head, she turned and started walking back towards the village, tagging him along. To everyone else's, "I am Harada Umi, an orphan who was taken in by the monks of the Fire Temple with a few others who survived the Kyuubi attack 12 years ago, and a medic who is a good acquaintance of the former Kiri Nin named Haku, who happens to be close friends with Team 7 under Hitaki Kakashi's guidance." It also took her time to heal, like the others, and that she may have lost the sight in her right eye, but that didn't matter. There are some who are far more affected of the tragedy that befallen their entire clan. Just like Itachi. Just like Sasuke. But it didn't stop her to hope, a trait she inherited from her parents, that someday everything will work out. "So, I heard from a certain dog that you found good friends. Can you tell me more about them?" These blasted Uchihas are still so annoying, Izumi thought to herself while eyeing the boy irritatingly. Even if she is a Uchiha herself, she doesn't act like these two. Perhaps that will never ever change. Meanwhile, ever since he became a ninja, Jiraiya knew that his life is going to be in constant danger, especially with the task he took upon himself. Being a spymaster means that one of his foot is already buried underground. So there is no surprise when he felt like this. Like someone is trying to kill him. Literally, figuratively. And that someone is glaring daggers behind his back. And no matter how interesting it is to observe the reaction of his would-be killer, Jiraiya prefers to live another day and avoid any further skirmish with the murderous pirate. As they walked along the road away from Konoha's southern gates, the Toad Sannin couldn't stop his curiosity and turned back. If looks can kill, he should have dropped dead by now with the intent the teen he will not even think of the actual age, damn it, is releasing towards him. Just the same, he looks at his companion and muttered lowly, in case the other blonde has super hearing in his arsenal, your pet is trying to kill me, can you ask him to back off or something? Huffing.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Naruto rolls her eyes at him and waves back to her phoenix, promising loudly to be back as soon as possible or at least a few days before they leave for their own journey. Thankfully enough, the killing intent vanishes like there was nothing at all and the older man breathes a sigh of relief as the pirate focuses his attention to his goddaughter. Another denial came through his mind and he'd rather not think of their so-called relationship, just as Kakashi stated the night before just after he was thrown out of Naruto's house. Perhaps ignorance is something he can live with until Naruto decides what to do with her connection to the pirate in question. Don't antagonize Marco, okay? He may not look like one, but he really is strong. Even the snake bastard can't defeat him. Sputtering comically, the silver-haired self-proclaimed pervert tried to correct her misconception about last night's discussion. But Naruto expertly misdirected the Sannin and asks about their destination. Raising both hands in surrender, Jiraiya muttered something incomprehensible. So, taking her ever-reliable notebook out, Naruto reviews the data Haku and Sakura gathered for her about their target or mission. The woman we're looking for is Jiji-sama's granddaughter, correct? Surprised, the pervy sage looked at her questioningly. Mentally rolling her eyes at him, she explained the preparations made by Haku, who still has the mindset of a hunter, and Sakura, who wanted to prep her for any possibilities that may arise in their mission. Approvingly, he tried to grab her journal as if wanting to look at its content. Deftly avoiding his hands, Naruto stuck her tongue out. Rule number 2, or was it 3? Pausing slightly, she smacks his hands and hid her notebook away from the pervert's grabby fingers. No one, aside from me or Marco, can see the contents of this journal, well except for that one time when Tem accidentally saw my notes and mocked my handwriting. The nerve of that bastard. Crossing his arms thoughtfully, Jiraiya studied the fuming girl before him. Maybe, if I teach you a new jutsu, something you can include in your ever-growing skill set, will you let me look at your mysterious journals, since I am contributing a very special technique that only 2 people can use, 3 if ever you learn it. And yes, he did saw that dangerous glint in her eyes when she heard and understood his silent challenge. Someone did attempt to recreate the jutsu, Kakashi is already expected as he was Minato's former student. Even if the unexpected outcome gave birth to another terrifying technique. Carefully, he showed her all 3 stages of the Rasengan. As expected, her eyes sparkled in wonder. And after jotting down her observation in a new page, she handed over the journal and immediately started on the jutsu. Bring it. I'll master this awesome jutsu in no time at all. If they're here, they'll probably cheer for her enthusiasm, Kushina most especially, and confidence. Minato will definitely cry buckets of joy. Yeah, he does feels the same way. He is so proud of her. Interlude, Jiraiya. He couldn't believe what he saw in his goddaughter's journal. It's like, your pirate is how did he came up with all these training regimen and strategies? It's like he's reading the journal of a genius shinobi tactician with a few inserts of pirate-y stuff. The Nara would definitely want to pick out Marco's brain. Her water balloon popped because of the distraction and she curses him out loud. Like a Kami-forsaken pirate. Wincing slightly, he avoided the balloon scraps thrown at him as he clucked his tongue in a reprimanding manner. Seriously kid, where are you learning all these words? Perhaps the pirate is a very good influence, especially to Naruto and to everyone who got to know the guy. He admits that the Phoenix in person is very charismatic, when he isn't trying to maim him. And at some point, makes him want to keep his girl away. Mannerisms of a pirate with an attitude of a shinobi, arg. A very bad combination if you ask him. Chapter 30. Part 29. Earlier that day, 7:40. This is a surprise, we never expected to see you here, Kakashi. Glancing towards the newcomers, the famed Sharingan no Kakashi smiled at them and gave the pair a cheery wave. Yuhi Kurenai and Sarutobi Asuma looks perplexed as they approach him, wondering why someone like him bothers himself in a place like this. It's true that the Dango shop and its surrounding establishments are more of Anko's territory. And perhaps Thatch-san too, the man loves to explore Konoha and all her delicacies. Together again, I see, musing softly but still loud enough to be heard, the 2 frowned in response. Did they notice already? Before Asuma can respond, Sasuke arrived with Hirata-san. The boy had this questioning look in his face for the assembled Jonins in the area. The medic gave a polite bow towards them and left, reminding the Uchiha to visit the hospital for the mandatory checkup. Sensing the change in the air, Kakashi looked at the 2 who nodded in response as they disappear in a shunshin. What's going on? Sasuke asked suspiciously when he saw Umi stopping a few yards away from the Dango shop, seemingly frozen. What could With a firm grip on his shoulders, Kakashi looked at him seriously. Keep her company. No matter what happens, don't leave her side, got it? Even before he can ask anything further, his sensei left without a backward glance. TCH. Carefully approaching Umi, Sasuke saw her pale complexion. Through his haki, he can feel her frantic emotions in contrast to the determined expression of her face. The same expression Naruto uses when she wanted to do something stupid that will probably freak Marco out. Realization dawned, knowing who could have caused this particular guise. He was here, is he? Glancing at him sideways, he saw a brief flash of her Sharingan. Thereafter Naruto-chan, huffing dismissively, he took her by the elbow. Mother's teachings remained despite everything, and urges Umi to seat in a vacant table. Crouching down and studying her reaction, Sasuke ignored the leftovers. Looks like his preferences in sweets remained the same, and responded quietly. The Dobi can take care of herself. What I am worried about is the woman sitting right in front of me who's about to faint or something after sensing her idiotic boyfriend after so many years of oomph. Don't be ridiculous, I'm not going to faint. Umi may have winced internally seeing his incredulous expression. I'm just surprised. Giving him an apologetic look, she flagged a server and requested 2 cups of tea. I'm just surprised, that's all. Yeah, right. 11:38. In the outskirts of a small village outside of Konoha, an elderly man accompanied by a frazzled young girl checked in at one of the numerous inns littering the area to spend the night and prepare for a very long journey in search of the legendary Sannin. Giving a few additional rubber balloons for her current task, the man left, promising to return by noon, wincing as he goes upon hearing the girl's litany of curses directed at his person and future generations. Turning in an alleyway, his smile returned as he was greeted by a very voluptuous woman who responded seductively with a flutter of her eyelashes. Sorry to keep you waiting, beautiful, shall we? 8 o'clock. Well, what do we have here? Asuma's eyes squinted dangerously as he observes the 2 missing nins in front of them, ignoring the taller man's greetings. The smaller one sighed and removes his straw hat, showing colored fingernails. Opening his cloak midway to rest his left arm as he stares back and acknowledges the 2 of them. It's good to see you again, Kurenai-san, Asuma-san. Oh ho, you know these 2, the other muttered amusingly as he removes his own straw hat. Knowing that a fight is inevitable, he took his blade out and attacks. Hopefully, the 2 of them would be able to hold these guys off until help arrives. In a 2-bedroom suite of a small inn, 13:35. Throwing the rubber balloon away, Naruto avoided the rebound as she drops her face down the pillow. Her scream muffled with her feet flapping carelessly like a fish out of the water over the edge of the bed. It's only been a few hours and she's missing him already. Damn it, she won't even think of their upcoming departure. Knowing that Tem will come with them makes her want to dye all his clothes in orange. Arg. Deciding to study her new jutsu, she reviewed all 3 forms. It sounds and looks easy enough. Her control is good, thus she was able to direct her chakra and a bit of haki in multiple locations all at once, even in a much smaller form. Just as Marco says, concentration is the key. The water balloon did allow her to refocus her chakra's natural flow, begrudgingly giving the creator a pat on the shoulders. The second stage is giving her a hard time, knowing that she has too much chakra and focusing it into a single point while increasing the volume and density is next to impossible. No matter. While the third stage, combining the 2 will need an extra hand. She already has a backup plan for that. So she'll definitely focus on the second step for now. And as she already knew her element, she can incorporate it to the jutsu's final form. That's for later. Alright. All these thinking makes her hungry. She did saw a ramen stand on the opposite building. Grabbing a few bowls will help her training. Yosh. Taking Gama-chan into her pouch, the blonde cheerfully took the key and unlocks the door. She did drop it in shock after seeing the person waiting from the other side of their suite. Quote? 8:15. Despite her ability, Kurenai knew that she's no match, especially against Uchiha Itachi's Sharingan. Preparing for the inevitable, hopefully he won't mourn that much for her death, she closes her eyes and awaited the younger shinobi's finishing blow. But then, a mirrored ice sprouts from the lake that is thick enough to shield her. Haku's reflection appeared and observes the scene before her. Uchiha Itachi, missing nin from Konohagakure. Wanted for the massacre of his entire clan. With a frown, she added softly. Sasuke-kun's older brother. The older nin's expression remains indifferent. But as someone who is starting to understand the intricacies of haki and its close relation to chakra, the Yuki knew that the man before her is. What is a bloodline of Kiri doing in the village of leaves? That the other man is in pain, ignoring Hoshigaki Kisame's incredulous question. Despite his amused expression, Haku didn't let her guard down. The other man is a daimyo killer and another missing nin wanted for attacking neighboring villages despite the ceasefire. Both are listed as S-class in her bingo book. Kakashi-san gave her the latest printout the other day. She's invited, or rather adopted, as the surrogate sister of a certain blonde-haired kunoichi that loves ramen, and a certain bird. Hitaki Kakashi answered on her behalf with a bit of an undertone for the last part as he blocks Kisami's attack with a sweetened jutsu of his own. He appeared beside the Sarutobi using a jutsu he may have copied when he fought Zabuza-sama back in Nami no Kuni. The original came out via her mirrored reflection as she signaled Kurenai-san to fall back by taking her inside her mirror and exited in a safe distance near the other Konoha-nin. Asuma whistled appreciatively as he tried to nurse his wound caused by Samahata. That jutsu sure is handy, kid. Giving him a polite smile, she immediately heals his wound as the older woman stood guard along with Kakashi's shadow clone. Perhaps it is convenient, this jutsu of hers. However, it only works for people who has the same elemental affinities she has. And that these two Jonins has water and wind respectively. Kakashi-san has several affinities which allowed him to copy those jutsus effortlessly, a terrifying ability an enemy can have, and it is a good thing he isn't one anymore. Ah, what an interesting assembly we got here, Itachi, grinning widely, Kisame noted and allowed Samahata to release its bindings. I suppose you'll allow me to play for a bit, yeah. Reinforcements are on their way. And I don't think the one we're looking for is in the village, Itachi remarked as he turned away, fully dismissing the interruptions. Let's go. The former Kiri-nin harumphed and grunted irritatingly towards the others. Seems like you lot won't get to see me play. Pity. Wait. As Itachi disperses in flocks of crows, he places a special genjutsu to the first person who attempted to reach him. Even Sasuke's eyes won't be enough to break his hold. Kakashi's eyes widen and Itachi responded with a patronizing smirk. However, the words the silver-haired Jonin mouthed surprises him. Ignoring Kisami's questioning look after they left the others, he deactivated his Sharingan and expanded his senses. They are still in Konoha but far enough to avoid any other confrontation. He isn't a censor, but what or who he found shocked him. If the Jinchuriki isn't here, how can we find the brat? Knowing that he needs to act quickly, he decided to distract Kisame. Hopefully, the girl has someone who can protect her. Someone who can hold the former Kiri-nin off. If what I heard is true, they are trying to find the Slug Princess. And from what I gathered, she is currently in the gambling district. Smile widening, his partner approves and went on to tackle their mission. Remember, we need the girl alive, he reminded carefully. Nodding, Kisame disappears after promising to follow shortly. He needs to make sure that what he sensed is that person. That his mind isn't playing tricks on him. That his lover, no, that his heart, the other half of his soul, is still alive. Meanwhile, present time at exactly 14:04. She doesn't know what to say, damn it. Thankfully the color of her face returned after a comforting hello from his end. And knowing her pirate, Marco knows how to cheer her up. Well, truth be told, seeing him already made her happy, but she won't say that out loud and invited her out for lunch. After 3 bowls of ramen, it wasn't as good as Chuki Oja-san's, but acceptable enough for her tastes. She drags the phoenix for a walk and to show the scenery. I'm really glad that you're here. Pausing slightly, she took something inside her pouch and handed it over. I was hoping to give you this earlier, but you woke up ahead of me. She saw Marco turning the mirror over and saw the seals she meticulously etched at the back. Excitingly, she explained the concept of their very own communication device activated by chakra or a drop of their blood, visually inspired by their Den Den Mushi with a ninja twist. I haven't determined the exact limits or distance. So hopefully this is our best chance to test it. Wadea say. Marco chuckled and ruffles her hair affectionately, ignoring her pout. You really do amaze me, Naruto. Giggling in response, she scratches her nose while wrestling with his hand and his mirror so that she can show him where he needs to apply chakra or his blood. She sampled some steps by using a duplicate mirror similar to the one she gave him. So you see, Oi. His eyes sharpened as he took her in his arms and jumps away from the crater that suddenly erupted from the spot where she was standing seconds earlier. Kisame came out of the hole as he whistled appreciatively, with Itachi appearing at the other side of the street. What the hell? Hang on, Marco shouted as he partially transformed and flew off. The two gave him bad vibes, and knowing that she's unprotected while fighting them makes him want to curse the pervert till the end of his existence. But then, a large ball of fire was aimed at them. Darn it, he could have taken the hit and shakes it off. However, he got a very precious cargo who is hanging for her life, as dodging that attack made her lose her grip. After this are all over, he'll figure out how to use both hands while still has his wings to fly, damn it. Knowing that any fall from this height is fatal, he transformed back and took the impact. Marco, Naruto cried out. He sacrificed himself. Again, damn it. Trying to reach him, someone grabs her jacket and raises her like a sack as she tried to fight the offending hand off. Sharingan stared down haughtily on her. Eyes widening, she suddenly remembers Sasuke's goal. And yet, the man or older teen, Okami, he's older by 3 to 4 years, and yet his emotions are all over the place, perhaps only to her. He's one of those masked ANBUs that used to babysit her in the past. Faintly remembering a blurry memory that happened on one particular day, Naruto knew that she also met him before, the other kind-hearted guardian that kept her safe from all those monsters. Knowing that Marco will need a few minutes to regenerate or heal his injuries, she tried to buy him some time. Why, you're Tem's older brother, right? Are you here to kill me? Tilting his head to one side, as if guessing what she's up to, Itachi raises his right hand and places it on top of the girl's head. For whatever reason, she didn't flinch. "I remember you, Weasel-san." Releasing his hold as if burned after hearing her whisper, the Uchiha looks at her frustratingly and was about to say something. Naruto never had the chance as she ducks her head with Marco giving the teen a dangerous-looking kick. Immediately scooting her behind him, his bluish-colored flame still licks up the gashes on his arms. The other missing nin thoughtfully appraises her phoenix's impressive talons that shifts back into its humanoid form. Wait. Feeling his anger, Naruto knew she needs to think of a way to divert Marco's attention. Any close encounter with an Uchiha, despite the intentions she felt from the former Konoha nin, may prove dangerous. Sasuke gave them a warning about his older brother in the event of an unfortunate scenario, accidentally meeting the guy or whatever, and to make sure not to look directly into his eyes.
Yo, quick pause, smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're new here, share this video, and tell me in the comments which part you're loving the most.
Marco may have failed to get the memo because he's having another heated argument with their sensei about something that possibly related to her well-being as usual. Despite his abilities, she don't know what a high-level genjutsu will do to an almost immortal devil fruit user's mind. "I don't have time for this," the Uchiha muttered and the tomo of his eyes started spinning. "Fuckers, datbeo." Marco stills and the world suddenly took a wild turn when he suddenly found himself back in Marineford. The rest of his nakama and allies are continuously fighting the Marines. Thankfully enough, Ace and his younger brother almost reaches the docks, or it once was after Ors Jr. tried to block it with his body. Feeling that something is amiss, he raises his hands and saw that it was covered by blood. "Marco." That voice. Fear gripped his insides as he turned and saw a pair of cerulean blue. "Are you hurt?" "All good. No. It's nothing to worry, everything is going to be okay." Blood trickled from the corner of her lips as one hand raises to wipe the tears that started to fall uncontrollably from his eyes. Naruto. Apprehensively breathing out her name as he catches her fall. Knowing that it is futile, he tried to cover the hole in her chest that continues to bleed out. Ignoring the commotion that surrounds him, he didn't notice Akainu's towering form who looks down on him as his right hand held something, her heart. As he looks up to glare at him, Marco notices the Admiral's eyes. It was blood red with the Uchiha's famous dojutsu while the tomo of his eyes spins ruthlessly towards him. As he started monologuing his incompetence to save the people he cares about, Marco just lost it. Interlude, Itachi. He cannot be mistaken. It is her. The face may be different, her hair lighter, although he does remember her father's coloring of the same shade with a different hairstyle and some bangs covering her right eye. He had his suspicions, but he'll accept them regardless knowing that she's that. A familiar voice suddenly spoke beside him even if he just met the girl earlier. Regret, longing, just to name a few, a distraction that may prove fatal, and yet he felt no ill intent from the other shinobi. He did eye the girl skeptically but returned his gaze to his former lover. Laughing quietly, the younger girl covered her mouth with a hand as she tried to hide a smile and the other hand took a small mirror from her pocket. "An invention created by my favorite kunoichi. We haven't tested it yet but I'm certain it will work." Carefully taking the mirror, Itachi eyes the girl cautiously, wondering why she haven't done anything to capture him. As if reading his unspoken question, the girl gave him a kind smile. "I may be a citizen of Konoha, but I am not her weapon." Pausing slightly, she added with a serious look. "I protect the people I care about, even from the village itself." As she melted, a bunshin, the original, appeared in front of the person he's spying upon and talks to her. Similar to the mirror she gave him, she handed a duplicate one telling the same thing she told him. "Wow, Naruto-chan really amazes me," she amusingly noted as she traces the intricate seals written at the back. Her voice sounded the same and yet older. Closing his eyes, Itachi tried to remember her face, unknowingly activating the mirror with his chakra. In turn, the mirror Uchiha Izumi holds showed an image of his tired and weary face. Patting her shoulders gently, Hiku gave her an understanding look but didn't comment any further. If only Itachi opened his eyes, he will see the tears that started falling from her face. Chapter 31, Part 30. A rubber ball hits him straight on the face. The last remaining loyal Sannin known through the elemental nations as the Toad Sage stares sullenly towards the girl who threw the ball, ignoring her annoyed look. "Will you stop that? It's starting to get irritating, datbeo." Disclaiming her statement, he pouted like a child. His reputation's already been tarnished long before, so he won't care about anyone's opinion anymore, well except hers, and waves his hand frustratingly. "I still don't understand why you did it, kid. As in seriously." Huffing in response, Naruto rolls her eyes at him and took another rubber ball from her pack. "If I hadn't, Marco may have killed you. So I did what I have to and break the illusion that blasted Uchiha placed on him." Growling, she accidentally used haki and the rubber melted like ice. "And what's with the shiny black thingy you used to coat your hands?" Swinging her hands to remove the slime and purposely targeted the pervert. Unfortunately, he was able to avoid her latest projectile. With a scowl, she ignored his latest inquiry. Seriously though, what's the big deal? But her face did warm though, especially when she remembers what happened earlier, and what she did to stop Marco from his rampage. A few hours earlier. I don't have time for this, Itachi muttered, and the tomo of his eyes started spinning. Allowing Tsukuyomi to impose his victim's greatest fear, he glances at the girl whose gaze never left the blonde before him. The other teen shooks his head, and yet he can immediately see the effects of his illusions. Strangely enough, the unknown still tried to reach him. Such willpower. TCH. When the surrounding area suddenly turned into a giant toad's esophagus, he nodded towards Kisame and uses Amaterasu's flames to make an opening. Aside from the girls, Protector, who proves to be so troublesome, fighting a Sannin may delay them further and that their chances of winning are very slim. Without looking back, knowing that Kisame follows slightly behind him, he decided to reconsider his priorities, especially after what he discovered. Everything's changed now. Your eyes. Noticing the wetness on his cheeks, the Uchiha wipes the blood off his face. I'll send a summon to report what had happened. For now, let's lie low and rest. Sighing dejectedly, his partner wraps Samahata with a fresh set of bandages as he threw a towel in his direction while continuing their trek away from Konohagakure. Despite their failures, he is hopeful. Tomorrow doesn't sound so bad after all. TCH. They got away, eyeing the black flames the Uchiha used to escape his Gamaguchi Shibari toad-mouth trap. He looks back at the other two. He didn't expect it for the pirate to be here or even see them off, knowing how the teen tried to mentally murder him earlier. But just the same, he is thankful for his presence as he was able to protect his goddaughter. However, avoiding a fatal wound by his neck, damn, those talons do look sharp. He took out a kunai and keeps a defensive position a few yards away from the other two. What the hell? The girl hastily explained what happened earlier. An illusion, Tsukuyomi. Oh shit. He clucks his tongue in bafflement as the phoenix tries again to attack him. Even a little, it does comfort him to know that despite the genjutsu, the teen doesn't think Naruto is a threat and continues to protect her. But he cannot break the illusion without closing in. However, any attempt may either give him a broken bone or new scratches that may or may not look good on his handsome face. You're the only one who can break the illusion, do something, hurry. What? But how? Frantically thinking of a way, Naruto remembers her chains. Closing her eyes, she imagined conjured rope-like chains and 3 sprouted behind her back. Accidentally impaling the wall behind her, she uses the other 2 to carefully surround her pirate. Rushing in front of him, she holds Marco's face with both hands. His gaze still seeing something she cannot. Without even thinking, the blonde Jinchuriki closes her face in. Automatically, her eyes shut close as her lips touches his own. Reaching out through their bond, Naruto called out his name repeatedly. Marco, Marco, Marco. Letting her chakra chains loosen, she felt his hands snakes around her body, holding her closer. Tighter. A moment's heartbeat passed, ignoring the pervert's flabbergasted reaction. Marco opened his eyes. His right hand cradles her cheek. When did that happen? As the other gently gripped her jacket. Up close, she can feel his warmth. His fears. Wiping the sweat that started to trickle down the side of his temple, and the tears that seemed to threaten at the corner of his eyes, Naruto took him in her arms as Marco burrows himself into her embrace, placing his head on top of her heart as his hands clutches her like a lifeline. Naruto, this is a first. But she knew that even if their roles are reversed this time, she will make sure to do everything she can to protect him. Even at the cost of her own life. That's a promise. In an undisclosed medical facility, Konohagakure, 16 hours after the incident. 2 shadowy figures emerges from a corner ceiling and carefully observes a guarded room along the hallway. There's a large glass window overlooking the entire corridor. A few minutes passed, the guard heard a staff who seems to be in great distress when another patient from the next room made a fuss about his medications. As any dutiful person would do, he assisted the medic to calm the patient. Taking the opportunity, one of the shadowed form prepares several hand seals to disrupt the monitoring seal placed strategically in the area to allow full usage of their chakra. Reaching the room left on its own by the shinobi guarding it, both nodded with one another. The taller one concealed itself with a genjutsu as the other gently turned the knob and saw their target. His continued presence in their village, a hindrance to their plans if left alone. Taking a senbon out, the shadow soundlessly approaches the bed and aimed for a vital part of his neck. Before the needle even pierced skin, the senbon freezes and frost traveled up to the hands holding it. Panicking wildly as it finally notices the entire floor covered in ice. A full-sized mirror placed at the back of the door glows slightly with a pair of emotionless eyes who stares down at the intruder whose gaze tried to look for another way out. Stepping out of her domain, Hiku strides over and took the senbon. Upon smelling it, she identified a poisonous herb native to Konoha. Frowning, she broke the needle into 2 as the door opens and a tall man entered the room with an unconscious cargo over his shoulders. I do know how annoying Birdbrain can be. But kill him while he's like this. That's so barbaric, even for shinobis. Thatch mutters unbelievably, a threat they cannot predict or control. The Yuki noted softly as Neko approaches the frozen shinobi. Root, hissing angrily as Yugao recognizes the unknown Kunoichi. The masked Anbu jerks back and took a tanto behind her back. Thatch immediately holds her arm and shook his head. Regardless of your differences, no need to be hasty, Neko-san. Thankfully, the woman releases her weapon and calmed down a little. Let's just put them in a place where no one can reach or corrupt them any further. Adding as an afterthought, places his cargo behind the frozen statue and urges Haku to unfreeze their captives and put them to sleep. They might be in danger too for failing their mission, so we might need to protect them as well. Don't tell me you're planning to collect a few more strays. Laughing amusedly at her incredulous reaction, her voice does sound one even if he cannot see her facial expression. Thatch rubs his neck bashfully and grinned towards the first stray. They collected technically, she was Naruto's, but Marco did play a big role for Haku's decision to stay in Konoha, so yeah. The Yuki giggled in response and took a few scrolls from her sleeves to seal their prisoners. Who knew that learning ninja stuff are so convenient, although he can only use the basics. Not that they haven't taken prisoners before. But yeah. Present day. Arriving in the gambling district of Tanzakugai, she forced the pervert to stop by the first restaurant they can find. Zooming into the restroom, she accidentally collided with a dark-haired woman carrying a pig. Oops, I'm so sorry miss, excuse me. Bowing twice, Naruto winces slightly and rushes immediately into a vacant stall with a slam. The woman laughs quietly and urges the animal she carried to stay quiet. She did stop when she remembers the symbol etched on the girl's hit. Paling considerably, she carefully went back to their table and saw another familiar face who is busy flirting with one of the pretty servers. Come Taunton, let's get out of here, her companion agrees with a squeak as they took their takeaways. Unknown to her, Jiraiya did see the woman and cheerfully thanked his contact, after discreetly handing a small pouch and a few flowery words which she returned with an irritated slap on his face. Rubbing his cheek, he petulantly eyed the woman. Naruto, who just came back from the washroom, witnessed the last part and rolled her eyes at him. Seriously, is that how you gather information? Laughing at her scandalous reaction, he did explain the pros and cons of the said method. Of course, he may have omitted the most important part of his job. Unless she plans to take his mantle as a spy, which he doubts, he'll give her the basic information and some half-truths. Besides, he can only see her taking her old man's hat. Nothing more, nothing less. Bringing her along the next establishment, he got this feeling that she'll have a few words to share. He did saw a familiar shade of blonde. The woman from earlier saw them and covers her mouth in shock. Possibly nursing a hangover, Senju Tsunade ordered a cup of hot coffee as her companion and the pig nervously turned their heads to look at them. Silently observing the other blonde in his life, Jiraiya smiled in nostalgia. She may have retained her youthful appearance, but one can never fault the change they all experienced. Fancy seeing you here. Hey, Heim. Ignoring the crack she made on her cup, the Toad Sage also observes the girl standing next to him. He can bet all his savings in the special collection of his best-selling novel that the blonde-haired Uzumaki is locking onto Tsunade's signature with that serious tilt of her mouth and the chakra thread she attached to his former teammate, Okami. She even adapted Minato's scrutinizing look. Giving out a boisterous laugh which Naruto understands is his game face, a scroll was handed over with Sarutobi-sensei's letter and the Shodai's emblem. Hashirama-sama did kind of predicted the need for a proof to convince his wayward granddaughter to come back home. A scolding if you'd asked the Nadime's opinion with that emotionless facade of his. And as expected, everything escalated down the drain after Tsunade mocks the position with Naruto defending her dream, and surprisingly enough, the men who took the mantle including the Yondaime. This is something he never foresee, especially from the animosity she felt towards the man. As what he knew of his goddaughter, Naruto bravely accepted Tsunade's dare and she's off somewhere to train. She almost camped herself in her chosen training area, and comes back to their suite to eat, sleep a little and returns to her training. He can almost feel her father's disapproving look towards him. He did assign one of his toad summons to watch over her in the event of another attack from Akatsuki. Will you cut that out? Tsunade slammed her hands, cracking their table in bits and chunks of splinters while the establishment itself wobbled a little. He did eye her carefully, knowing how distracted she is with her grandfather's letter. Any wrong move or he'll be punted across the elemental nations for any teasing he wanted to throw at her. And no, he didn't even attempted to peek. Thank you very much. The scroll itself is tightly sealed and quite possibly his goddaughter can open it, somehow. You do know that coming back is inevitable, right? Huffing, she drank her sake in one gulp. The woman may look the same in her late 20s and yet entirely different. Jaded even. Besides, adding thoughtfully as they saw Naruto's retreating form as she went ahead to start that day's training, not before sticking her tongue out towards the other woman. You're betting against a child about the fate of the entire village. And for the life of me, I do not understand the whys. Clasping her fingers, Tsunade returns Jiraiya's inquisition with one of her own. What do you know about the seat of Shinseiju? When the old toad gave her a blank look, the Senju side embarks another order of sake. It is almost time. Never mind the question. Let's drink, just like the old times. Shall we? ... You really should take care of yourself, Naruto-chan. Shizune took the girl's hand covered by scratches and burn marks of the jutsu she's trying to perfect as part of her dare with Tsunade-sama. The wounds are indeed healing on its own, possibly because of her tenant. But just the same, she heals it anyway. The girl laughs shyly at her and blew another balloon while asking endless questions about their travels. It is as if she's trying to divert her attention away. Shizune chuckled and answered dutifully when they heard a loud noise behind. Whipping out several senbons in her hands, the medic was about to attack when she saw Jiraiya's hunched form, grasping for breath. Oh no. ... So tell me, what do you plan to do to Konoha after I healed your arms? Hands glowing with chakra, Tsunade carefully approaches her former teammate and took into consideration the other figure beside him. As his companion is yet to reveal their face, she wants to make this quick and deal with the other one as soon as she done with the old snake. However, she was ratted out a censor. Damn it. Before she can even touch him. Using her weakness, Orochimaru's companion slices up their arm and sprayed everything all over her. Freezing at the sight of blood, she couldn't stop herself from shaking. Such a pitiful sight if one asks, especially in comparison to her past escapades. Following Orochimaru's orders to kill her, the cloaked figure was about to end her life, but then. Don't even think about it, Datbeo. The newcomer spats with venom in her voice as Shizune follows closely behind her. Jiraiya still looks wasted, the effects of her drug still present in his system, yet he immediately took the snake's attention away. Orochimaru's minion does know how to fight, yet the brat's persistence may have forced her back. However, chakra chains. Shizune muttered unbelievably as a familiar shade of red unveils from the unknown participant and attacks the younger girl. She wanted to help, but knowing that Tsunade-sama is vulnerable. I got this. Protect her no matter what, Naruto stated with a wild grin and uses her own chakra chains against the other kunoichi. Both Snake Bastard and the redhead eyes widen in surprise. Imbuing her chains with Haki AAW, her chains looked so nice and pretty, she was able to overpower the other's chakra chains. Wait, she cannot sense any ill intent from the other woman, and yet. Why are you fighting for that man? Do you know how evil he is? ... Her chains rattled for a bit after she heard the other girl's questions. Throwing a few senbons at her, Karen bit her lips to prevent herself from responding. Knowing who the man is, she kept a blind eye on everything Orochimaru-sama did. Despite his intentions, he is the only person who took her in when she got nowhere else to go. The girl that her master wanted to kill hesitated upon learning that she's a Uzumaki too. Kill her now. Praying that their ancestors and elders would forgive her for what she is about to do, Karen attacks. The blonde disperses her chains, an impressive ability despite the lack of proper training, and activating something in her hands. Black and shiny, she drops in all fours and tackled her down. Knowing what is about to come, the red-haired Uzumaki awaited her fate. Her eyes did open abruptly when the ground beside her head crumbled by the force of her punch. Looking up, she saw tears threatening from the corner of her eyes. No matter what, your family. And I will never abandon you, so give me a chance to make things right, please. ... He can almost see how everything will end. Knowing that the girl is trying to steal his pet, just like how that blasted pirate stole Kabuto, he must act quickly. Killing the girl has never been a priority. But if she continues to be a hindrance to his plans, he will kill her himself. If his useless minions cannot do a simple task, he'll make sure to do it properly. Grinning maliciously, he bounded towards his former teammate and feigned an attack, forcing Jiraiya to avoid him, and with enough distance, he made his move. But for whatever reason, the brat sensed him as she stands between him and that useless piece of red-haired hag. She was able to stop his sword with her bare hands, similar to what that blasted pirate has done to his kusanagi, and used her other hand after a clone did something and disperses with a familiar-looking technique that he saw one other blonde perform. Hastily, he cuts off the connection to her chakra before being propelled backwards in a considerable distance. Feeling satisfied despite his broken body, Orochimaru laughs out loud, ignoring their incredulous looks as the girl fell. Eyes widening, Tsunade and the redhead ran towards the blonde. Karen hesitated, but the female Sanin barks frustratingly at her while the other woman stood guard. Do you know what he did to her? Gasping in fright, she drags her sleeve up, showing multiple bite marks, persuading the girl to bite her arm. He cuts off her chakra. Without it, she'll die. The Senju reluctantly cuts off the brat's jacket, showing her bloodied underclothes. Hands shaking, she bit her lips as an attempt to control herself. Tsunade did pause, hearing the other Uzumaki's quiet apology. But then her idiotic teammate former tried to attack again as he shed his skin, showing his current body, a girl. Pushing her away, the younger woman took Orochimaru's assault as she shielded the blonde Jinchuriki. Then die with her, bitch. At that exact moment, Senju Tsunade knew what she needs to do without her noticing that her body, particularly her hands, that they stopped shaking. Kanahagakure, a few days later. How is he? Sasuke asks as he places an apple to the Yuki's waiting hands for peeling. Thatch is dutifully making his own creations as if competing with Haku's bunny-themed slices. With a sigh, the pirate eyed Marco thoughtfully with Naru-chan's mirror leaning at the vase of Sakura's flowers which the Pinkett brought in earlier. Still sleeping like a log. But when Naruto called in yesterday, he may have responded, rubbing his jaw speculatively. Then there's his phoenix flames that suddenly came out of nowhere. We don't want to think that Naruto-chan is in danger. But just the same, we asked Neko-san for an update. Haku added as she placed a platter of fruits in front of him. The Uchiha frowned and took a few slices, silently appraising the bite-sized fruits. She promised to send a summon and track them. Hopefully she'll bring good news a bit later. An hour passed, the masked Anbu did indeed came back bearing some good news. That Naruto's coming home with few new faces and possibly their new Hokage. Much to his relief, he did saw the phoenix's fingers move. His smile did disappear knowing what he is about to do which may or may not affect Team 7's future. He just hoped that the others will understand. Especially Naruto. Interlude, Jiraiya 2. His heart literally fell from his chest as he watches his goddaughter kiss the pirate to wake him up from the illusion the damn Uchiha placed on him. Kami-sama, Minato is going to kill him. His jaws seemed to have locked up as the pirate responded to her kiss, and his hands held Naruto closer. Tighter. Something he needed to rectify as soon as possible. Thankfully enough, they parted as Marco burrows himself into her arms, her bosom. It was only a few seconds but Jiraiya felt like it was 100 years when the two finally separated and the older team continues to cling towards her like a lifeline. From what he remembers about Tsukuyomi, it shows the victim's greatest fear. That means, don't open your eyes, Naruto repeated as she continues to calm her pirate. Use our bond for now, I'll find a way to fix this. I promise. Bond. What bond? As the girl looks at him desperately, the questions are set aside for later and help Naruto bring her pirate back to their room until help arrives. As they cannot bring him along their trip, he must remain in Konoha. And if this keeps up, he won't be able to send the pirate back which is not acceptable. At all. Darn it. Seriously though, the thought of bringing Tsunade home has never been more appealing than before. Even if he needs to beg by his knees, bribe or pay all her debts, he'll do it. Marco the Phoenix must leave Konoha no matter what. Chapter 32. Part 31. After Naruto came into the room, as loud as she can ever be just like the first time they met, she immediately went to Marco's side with a totally different expression. It took a few seconds but Jiraiya did see her touch the pirate's hands and returns her attention to face the two of them who accompanied her inside. The others waited outside to avoid overcrowding the room. Politely, her goddaughter requested the Senju to break Itachi's genjutsu, much to the Heims' surprise for her unexpected demeanor. It only does take a couple of minutes from Tsunade's end as Naruto's hopeful smile starts to widen and laughs happily as she tackled Marco and gave him a gaze full of unexplained emotions. After the teen regained his consciousness, he did see how his own hands held her tightly within their embrace. With Thatch cheering beside them, Jiraiya sighed mournfully, ignoring Tsunade's glare as the two remained glued to each other. Arg. Turning her gaze towards the other occupants in the room, she did notice the former Kiri Nintham. Looks like her influence and charisma knows no bounds judging from the other stray they brought home with them, and the last Uchiha, or so she thought, who was standing near the window with a fond smile towards the brat. Judging from the look he gave her seconds earlier, seems like he want to talk. She wondered if it got something to do with Hiruzen-sensei's revelation about their clan. Aside from berating Kakashi for his carelessness and scolding her former sensei for not taking care of his health, her first day as Konoha's Godime Hokage doesn't seem so bad. Well, almost. Can you repeat that to me again, please? Her tone is as dry as soon as surrounding deserts. Shimura Danzo remains unmoved as he spoke his mind in a manner that she thinks is a kind of disrespect to her position. Regardless, she clasped both hands and placed her chin above her fingers as she observes the man before her. Now that she noticed it, the old coot does not have these bandages all over his arm in the past. The left side of his face though, if she's not mistaken, was probably the wounds Uchiha Shisui inflicted. The reports she received earlier broke her desk, much to Jiraiya and the third's careful expression. But, should that have healed already? She does hate to admit it, but he's right. This is one person she needs to watch out for. With that in mind, she mentally prepared all the things she needs to do now that she's Hokage. But first, awaiting her reply, Danzo studied the woman very carefully. Just like the unwanted nuisances he has to continuously deal with, the operatives he sent are still missing. Damn it, the Shodai's granddaughter will prove to be another obstacle he has to get around with. We can no longer allow outsiders to stay in our village. You must kick them out, especially now that the pirate regained his consciousness. Ignoring the cracking noise where her elbows are placed, he eyed the blonde coolly. But if you need time and consider the request of your council, let us know. Giving the woman a polite bow, he walked out of her new office and saw the said people with the Uzumaki Jinchuriki sitting beside the topic of his earlier conversation with the new Hokage. Scoffing internally, he pauses in front of them as he watches how the girl clings to his side like a limpet. No matter. Once he leaves, he will make sure to prepare her. The girl will and always be a weapon of Konoha. Blocking his gaze, the teen stands protectively in front of the Kyuubi brat. Kakashi and the other pirate who are standing beside the girl turns frigid in response, awaiting for the teen's reaction. Perhaps they knew. Regardless, his people will never be able to rat him out. He made sure of it. Need anything, yoi. Quote. Naruto tried to tug his shirt but Marco just took her within the protection of his arms and gave the older man a wordless warning. Touch her, and I will kill you. Danzo didn't respond but the downward tilt of his mouth says otherwise. The phoenix can see from his eyes the threat he may impose to his blonde kunoichi. Regardless, with the few days he have left in the village, he'll make sure to prepare any eventuality his Naruto may face without him. Meanwhile, when she heard what Sasuke wanted to do, Umi may have reacted badly. Itachi already took a burden of his own that decided the fate of the clan. And yet, he's learning. Konoha's last known Uchiha finally decided to do something by his own accord as well. But, biting her lips, Umi avoided his gaze. Warm hands patted her hands gently as the speaker tried to make himself more comfortable judging from the rustle his bed covers made. This is the first decision he made on his own accord after that night, her last surviving relative stated with a soft smile on his face. I'm certain he knows what he's doing. So don't worry yourself, Umi-chan. The reason why she chose this alias is because of his pet name for her. Sighing audibly, she absent-mindedly handed her cousin's bottle so that he can drink his water after taking his medicine. Regardless of their unfortunate circumstances, looking for one another is the least they can do. Their elders may rot in hell for all she cares, but she won't commit their mistakes ever again. Somewhere in training ground 44, Thatch sighed audibly and Marco had the urge to throw something at him. Just the same, he glared at his friend while toning his Haoshoku down. Ever since that incident, he lost control of himself. Especially his emotions. Even now, he could not stop seeing the blood in his hands, Naruto's blood. Despite being an illusion, his mind is going chaotic knowing that he might not be able to protect her. With that in mind, he took a self-appointed task. Something he needed to work out within himself. He needed to awaken. Are you sure about this? Avoiding a rock thrown at him, Whitebeard's 4th Division commander effortlessly held Kubikiribocho in one hand and imbued it with haki. I know you can heal and all, but this sword is entirely different from the swords back home. Birdbrain's glare intensifies and with another exasperated breath raises his weapon and attack. Neko and Haku watches in a considerable distance as per his request. His skills may have rusted a little bit as he used to wield a cutlass type of sword on both hands unlike this one which may probably catch Mihawk's attention just by being a very magnificent weapon, big is the right word, and for cutting people. This is all Marco's fault for making him think morbid kind of things. Thus he went all out, and perhaps to teach the Phoenix a lesson as well. Seriously though, if Marco just wants to be honest with himself, they wouldn't have this spar. Not that they don't need it for something else. He is also certain that Oyaji wouldn't mind if Marco decided to stay here in Konoha just so he can be with Naruto. But being the responsible older brother and possibly the oldest of them all, Marco wants to return for whatever reasons he believes is his duty or whatnot. Oh well, he just have to convince him a little bit more. And perhaps the other commanders will help, especially Ace. Right, the brat himself will definitely like the other blonde too. All her stuff are packed and ready. Pervy Sage wanted to bring her with him to train for another 2 years. Just like how Tem wanted to come with her blonde pirate in paradise. 2 days left before they part ways, ignoring the fact that it may be the last time she'll see Marco again. Sasuke might be a good compromise as he needs to return eventually, but yeah. With a hopeful sigh, she took her new journal and her letter inside her jacket. Probably she'll give it to Marco before they part ways. Knowing that she will get the chance to see the gateway separating them from one another, makes it a little bit easier knowing that she can get to him if needed. Haku promised to look after their house and that Sakura will be moving in temporarily to accompany her especially now that they have a new housemate now officially a member of her clan. Uzumaki Karen quickly made herself at home and was able to get along with the other two. Strangely enough, the trio created a group of fishcake protectors, or something of that sort. Thatch did laugh out loud hearing their declaration and paled slightly when the three turned their attention at him with the pinkett and the redhead glaring murderously towards the pompadour-haired pirate. Surprisingly enough, Kabuto washed his hands with the girls and their project, pretending that he isn't staying in the same apartment they do. Well, he mostly stayed inside his room doing nothing but stare at the wall or write in his journal, the copycat. And only moves around their house when the pirates are in. Strangely enough, he's in good terms with Thatch and Haku. She isn't sure if the said teen will go with Marco since the silver-haired genin is still in probation and under his care. She did gawk at him in surprise knowing that Kabuto is already Jonin level per Kakashi-sensei's words. So she decided to visit her other teammate and bother him, perhaps to ask if he can look after her Phoenix on this trip. Despite knowing that Marco can perfectly take care of himself, she worries. She knew that something changed within him, especially after the incident with Sasuke's older brother. She really does need to talk to the Uchiha and tell the Tem what she sensed from his brother. Her hand stopped before she can turn the knob. What if Sasuke's want to avenge his family outweighs everything? Will he listen if she tells him what his older brother really feels? Accidentally colliding with Konohamaru after she opened the door, she jumps over the boy and shouted her apologies. Taking to the roof, she ran towards Sasuke's apartment unmindful of the pair of eyes following her back. Sealing a change of clothes in a storage scroll, Sasuke took a deep breath after placing his stuff inside a backpack while his gaze wanders around his room and ended on a few frames the Dobi forcefully placed in his hands. Duplicate copies of Team 7's group photo was handed over to everyone with Marco taking over the other frame much to Kakashi-sensei's sulky expression. Suddenly, his eyes sharpened and threw a shuriken towards the shadows in the corner. Kukuku, as expected of Master Orochimaru's chosen. Excellent reaction time. I love it. The newcomer chuckled amusingly and Sasuke saw a young woman with fair skin, dark eyes and light blue hair that is kept in a spiky ponytail. Wearing a red one-piece suit which is easily noticeable but for whatever reason, she blended so well within the shadows. He can also smell blood. Sharingan flares dangerously towards the unknown. Raising both hands, the woman sighed and tugged her bloodied gloves off. With a slight twist of her fingers, she crystallized her accessory and drops them to shatter into dusts. I was sent to clean up the leftovers. Eyes widening, Sasuke tightened his hold on a kunai unknowingly reinforcing it with haki. Relax. I did not come here to do anything stupid. Pausing slightly, the woman cocked her head to a side, especially now. Tem, are you home? Rolling her eyes at him, the woman crosses her arms and leaned further into his wall, almost blending herself within. I'll be back, see you later, Uchiha-san. Sasuke. Naruto suddenly showed herself through his hallway. He almost forgot that he gave Team 7 a duplicate of his house keys. Rubbing a weary hand over his neck and disabled his dojutsu, he walked past the blonde and out of his apartment. She did follow afterwards after grumbling incoherently to herself. Judging from her earlier expression, seems like she wanted to tell him something. He can already guess what it is all about. I'm grabbing something to eat. And I am not paying for your meal, got it? Muttering how rude he is, the last known Uchiha rolled his eyes towards his friend and ignored Naruto's sputtering reaction after she collided into him. Oh, looks like he finally admitted it to himself. With a smile he hid perfectly from the blonde's suspicious gaze, he grunted in response and started thinking of what he wanted to eat. I need to, pausing slightly, the Dobi clenches both hands and looked at him seriously. I need to talk to you. It's about your older brother. Seems like this day is going to be a long one, as the Uchiha noted absent-mindedly while gesturing the blonde to follow. Somewhere in the outskirts of Konoha, a white-haired young man sits comfortably in one of the many branches surrounding that particular forest. Below the tree, a masked Anbu lies with several bones protruding out of its body, seemingly lifeless. Gurren frowns at the sight but gave her companion an approving look. I happen to found someone who I think will greatly interest you. Holding out a miniature version of Yakushi Kabuto using her crystal release ability, the last survivor of the Kagaya clan nodded and took the crystal in his hands. How much time do we have left? The woman's red-colored lips widened dangerously in response. More than enough. Sasuke's expression remains blank after she shared him what happened the day Marco fell. Avoiding his gaze, Naruto tugged her hair tie off and tried to hand-comb her hair. It was past her shoulders now. How weird it felt. Well, say something. Turning to look at him, she breathes painfully, feeling the Uchiha's emotion. It is a bit overwhelming. Feeling her gaze, Sasuke gave her a poke on her forehead and ruffled her hair. You don't need to worry about it, giving her cheek a slight pinch which she responded with a slap on his hands. Sasuke chuckled and started to walk away from her. That's it. I will deal with my brother when the time comes. For now, let us focus on our own journey, and train harder than ever before. Sasuke answers in response to her earlier inquiry. But, with a look she rarely see from him, Since when did he activated his Sharingan? She saw Sasuke's lips quirk a bit upwards before feeling her eyes drop a little and suddenly had this urge to sleep. Not before she heard him say those words as darkness surrounds her. I'm sorry, Naruto. Interlude, Tsunade. The letter her grandfather wrote does remind her how cunning the man is, or rather was when he's still alive. Even after death, he retains the said personality as it seems. At first, she thought it was his grand-uncle who wrote the letter. But the tiny doodles at the back says otherwise. Despite his sunny disposition, Senju Hashirama is one shinobi she prefers not to face again or fight with, ever. And then there's this girl who caught his attention. The blonde-haired Uzumaki. She was one too, but perhaps her blood was diluted at some point, who reminded her so much of her grandparents. Especially her grandmother's beloved clan. Her dreams, their dreams, her want to protect her family. Despite it all, her grandmother wanted her clan safe, and her self-appointed mission to protect the village, her grandfather's dreams to protect everyone who longs for peace itself. Perhaps, she'll give it one more try. Hey Ba-chan. A vein popped and she decided to reward the brat with a sweet smile and a murderous intent to hurt her for being disrespectful, although another flick on the forehead will do the trick nicely. The girl added, hopefully ignoring her sake. If you finally decided to pass me that hat, will you allow me a few days or so? Marco promised to show me the new world first and, anger forgotten, she mused quietly to herself, wondering who this Marco is. A boy back home. And where the hell is this new world? It doesn't sound like Konoha or any other village in the elemental nations. Oh, Marco is a very precious friend. He's the one we need to go to first once we're back in the village. And then there's Gigi. Ignoring Jiraiya's souring look, who added that the girl's own sensei is sick as well, she tugged Naruto to her side and teased her a little. Blushing slightly, the blonde Uzumaki deflected her question, and the redhead's glasses, who is standing next to the kid, shined dangerously as if sensing something amiss, especially when her idiotic teammate choked on his drink. Ooh, it does sound very suspicious. I see. So tell me more about this pirate of yours. Interest finally picking up, she heard the tales of a selfless man, almost immortal-like, with that strange ability bestowed by a bad-tasting fruit, whose love for his nakama knows no bounds and is willing to sacrifice his existence for the sake of family and for this particular girl. A dream inherited from the father figure who found him, with a bond stronger than blood. Sounds like an interesting person. Smiling, Naruto agreed cheerfully and tugs her towards the place she never expected to come home into. The walls of Konoha clearly visible from this distance. Seems like coming home doesn't sound so bad after all. Chapter 33. Part 32. He shouldn't have left the safety confines of his home. Hey, the word itself is quite ridiculous to comprehend since he never remembered having one, ignoring the place he previously had before it all started. But after he met him, everything started to fall into place. Or make sense in his chaotic existence. Removing the bones that protrudes from his flesh courtesy of his unexpected guest, Yakushi Kabuto sighed annoyingly and started healing his wounds internally. Perhaps he will not hesitate to attack that place as well, knowing that he lives there. He suppose it is a blessing in disguise to avoid the others from getting caught in the crossfire. Since when did he started to care for these people? A strange concept, but not entirely surprising given the company he now walks with. And when he heard the arrival of his attacker, he tried to calm himself. Thinking of a way to send Marco a warning. It is the least he can do for the pirate who saved his life. Are you ready to die? With a condescending smile, Kimimaro raises one hand towards him. This is the least I can do for all the efforts you have put into me, for keeping me alive. As the medic closes his eyes to await his fate, he heard the sound Nin's voice as the younger man softly mumble his farewell. Meanwhile, Karen was greatly surprised to know that Orochimaru's right-hand man is here. That Yakushi Kabuto is still alive. Living in the same house as her. Living with the family she just found. She thought he was dead, judging from the tantrum her master former made after returning from that attempted invasion without the said medic by his side. Thus she kept it to herself when she met him and watches the other shinobi with suspicion and wariness. Kabuto shook his head in response to their first meeting and smiled cheekily at her. Flustered, she hid behind Naruto-sama's back and glared at him. The other, overwhelming, presence she tried to ignore it as much as she can because it is scary as hell, who is sitting beside the blonde-haired Uzumaki did smile amusingly as he observes their interaction. Kabuto also lives here, albeit temporarily, yoi. Until he decides what to do with his life, he's staying on the other room next to ours. Naruto interjected happily in confirmation and showed her the blueprints of their house with another expansion. Asking what her favorite color is, her unofficial clan head discussed some changes with Haku-chan as she inquired her additional input for the furnishings. That day went almost okay, shadowing Shizune-san, who was designated as the Hokage's personal assistant, but when she felt Kabuto's chakra disappear, she gasped in shock and gripped the other woman's hand who steadied her. Hokage-sama's eyes glinted dangerously and immediately called in her anti-us. Intruders, Kei Kabuto-san. Barking out her orders, Tsunade immediately summoned Neko, knowing that the said Anbu is with the pirates at this time. Despite the leeway Marco has in his connection to a certain Kunoichi and the third Hokage, she still has to consider the factor that the said teen is still unknown, despite saving the village from her idiotic teammate. Unless he decided to enlist as one of her shinobi, she will always consider him as a guest. Perhaps just to satisfy the council's paranoia. Giving Karen a once-over, she waited a few minutes and allowed the young woman to collect herself. How many? Her voice sounded calm, and yet the intent she releases gave Taunton a scare as she hid behind Shizune while the said woman looks at the redhead in worry. There's 2. 3 with the other 1W who came from here. Coming up north, and there's 3 more. With a deep breath, the Uzumaki frowned and added cautiously. There might be others outside my range, their possible location may vary. But I'm certain that it will be close to the borders of the Land of Fire. Her expression remains unyielding. The Godime Hokage walked towards the window behind her desk that overlooks the entire village and clasped both hands behind her back. The suffocating intent she released earlier vanished and was replaced by a very calming air. Karen gulped back her trepidation and glances surreptitiously to Shizune-san, who nodded at her quietly and left the room with the pig following closely behind. The redhead immediately notices the village leader sigh and looks back at her as another presence entered the room. The Jonin commander coughs slightly to make his presence known. Report. Nara Shikaku's information did not surprise her. Knowing that his options are limited now that he just thrown his possessions away, the Uzumaki knew that the snake will certainly utilize those two to get things back on track. Am I to assume that you know these intruders? Shikaku asks while Tsunade remains quiet, who decided to sit down and clasp both hands in an attempt to cover the displeased tilt of her lips. Hesitating slightly, the redhead turns to the Senju for guidance, who nodded her head in consent. The last of their clans. With a pause, the Uzumaki clenches her fists in trepidation. Both are loyal to that man and will do everything they can to appease him. Realizing their intent, Karen's eyes widen, mirroring the Hokage's sudden realization. Naruto-sama, she's waving one hand off dismissively. Tsunade leans back and tapped one manicured finger on top of her desk, with a tiny twitch of smirk playing across her face. Don't worry about the brat. She is far more safer in the village, or rather with that pirate around. Baffled, the redhead looks toward Shikaku, who shrugged his shoulders in agreement. We need to track their footprints. To know if there are casualties involved, can you help us, Uzumaki-san? Nodding her head, Karen turned and gave a polite bow to her new village leader. I'll do what I can, Nara-san. For Naruto-sama. The unspoken promise heard from her voice, and both responded in approval, the Senju most especially. As the two left her office, the Slug Princess silently contemplates the events that started to transpire that day. That the wheels of fate started to roll into motion, with several paths laid for each and every one of her shinobi, who will have to choose the road they wanted to take. She just hopes that despite everything that might happen today, she'll be able to keep the village and her people intact no matter what. A few hours earlier, Neji gave the two weirdos a grunt farewell with a wave of his hand and an exasperated look towards Tenten as he turned his back, methodically ignoring the two spandex-wearing shinobis who were busy exclaiming his own youthful vigor and dedication for that day's training. The twin-bunned Kunoichi chuckled in response and waves in return as she watches Neji's back, while the two nerds thankfully stop their show and quickly stands beside her. Gai-sensei had this thoughtful look on his face as Lee looks at her inquisitively. Something wrong? Shaking her head, she pinches his cheeks and scolded him for being careless. She did almost slice Lee in pieces during their spar, but he laughs at her reaction, but his eyes shows appreciation for her concern. And as expected, he promised to train harder, knowing that her expertise is now starting to catch up with his speed. Sweat dropping, Tenten sighed but indulges him all the same. Unknown to the two, Guy noticed a specific light that suddenly went off from the Hokage tower. Keeping up his facade, he cheerfully urges the two to go home and reminded their meeting tomorrow for another youthful training as he disappeared in puffs of smoke and leaves. Damn it, he forgot to give Lee his usual farewell after he left in haste. Hopefully the teen isn't paying attention as he is busy teasing Tenten. What happened? His eternal rival appeared beside him as they rushed towards the tower. Shaking his head, he hopes that whatever the disturbance is, it won't affect the dynamics the team currently has, knowing that Neji is starting to open up to everyone. Perhaps he'll invite the blonde-haired Uzumaki for a meal, as a sign of his gratitude. And then there's this brief outburst of unadulterated fury coming from the forest. A familiar sensation that he once felt not long before. Damn it, Marco. What now? Kakashi muttered. Seems like he need to do a rain check on that meal. Tayuya finishes the last of her pursuers as the other four if we include Uken, watches cautiously behind. Jirobo handed her flute as her anger boils into a simmer. She will kill that bastard who took her down. Our mission is to make sure the delivery of the package. Smirking, Sakin added that she'll have her chance, if she targets the correct person. Smiling sinisterly, she urges them to go ahead with a specific task in mind. She's going to make sure he will feel her wrath once this is all over. That is a promise or she'll die trying. A few minutes later. What do you think you're doing, stupid brat? That Uchiha put you in a genjutsu-induced sleep. And someone is trying to kill you and the other brat, so do something about it. I don't want to disappear without you fulfilling your part of the bargain, you incompetent fool. The familiar voice said with enough venom in his tone when Sasuke was mentioned. A genjutsu sleep. Wait, what bargain? With a frustrated growl, Naruto gave the fox a finger as she opened her eyes. Surprised to see Neji crouching, with a few grazes on his arms beside her with several of her chains sticking out of the ground and formed some sort of a barrier to protect them. Outside, she can hear several curses of their attacker, who is mending the wounds caused by a hockey-imbued chain. Wow, that's something new. Hey, you're that girl from the invasion. How did you? Eyes glinting madly, Tayuya activates her cursed mark and attacks. Feeling her murderous intent, Naruto pushes the Hyuga away as she imbued her legs with haki and uses Marco's favorite high kick move. Hearing bones shattered upon impact, wincing slightly and felt a little sorry for the other girl, the blonde uses her other feet, this time with chakra, to push her opponent back. Damn you! The redhead screeches and fully transformed with her curse mark enveloping her form, turning into something monster-like. Ew. Thinking how grotesque Tem could have been if he received the snake bastard's mark makes her want to hurl everything she ate earlier that day. Ah, disgusting. Then she heard how this girl plans to make the Anbu wearing a phoenix's mask suffer by killing her. Ignoring Neji's cautious look as her haki flows dangerously within her limbs, then she felt her eyes slitted in anger. What will you do now? Hearing the fox's voice in her head as he asks her next move, not even wondering how she labeled the creature as a male, perhaps it is the build of its body or something, Naruto knew what she must do. A threat to your precious pirate. Do you want to kill her? Stealing her resolve, she acted without hesitation, ignoring the purring sound the fox made inside her mindscape. Consequences be damned, she won't let this girl harm the person she cares about. The people precious to her. Even if she needs to sully her hands. Even if she sacrifice her life for them. Marco believed that being a pirate has several advantages unlike any other. There might be the negative ones that he need to consider very carefully. But he made sure to set rules for himself that Edward adapted when their crew started to grow in numbers. He should have been there when Oyaji recruited Teach, just so they could have avoided the incident with Thatch. Something he needed to sort quickly once they get back. Then there's the idea of being a ninja. Now this was suggested by the Sandame when he was formally introduced to the new village leader, albeit in passing. Senju Tsunade is one intimidating woman that may scare a lesser man. Thatch included. Surprisingly, as the granddaughter of the first and second Hokage, Marco knew that she will value the village more than anything. But, he did see the concern in her eyes when she talked about his Naruto. Ah, Naruto can take care of herself. With a worried scowl, the pirate remembers his prey that escaped his grasps. He did try to control his anger when he learned what the bastard did the day she found the Senju. True. Clasping both hands, Tsunade added softly. With Jiraiya's guidance, she'll be able to surpass her parents in regards to the fox or the seals surrounding her heritage. Ignoring Hiruzen's concerned gaze, Marco breathes heavily to calm his emotions and ignores the illusionary bloodstain in his hands, Naruto's blood, and turned his eyes towards the two. As Thatch is busy with the preparations for their departure, he will discuss the plans they both agreed upon, much to the fourth commander's resigned frustration. Thinking of his future endeavors, Tsunade nodded and gave her own offer, much to the Phoenix's surprised reaction. Placing the said thought at the back of his mind, he transformed halfway as he saw her standing beside the lifeless form of the girl he recognizes from the invasion, with the Hyuga watching quietly from afar with a few of Naruto's chakra chains surrounding the boy like a barrier. Her voice is calm and yet he can feel the turmoil within when she acknowledges his presence. Regret is something I need to get familiar with, but I will not hesitate to do it again if it means I can protect you. Her eyes shadowed as her gaze remained glued to the body beneath her. No words came out of his mouth. But he took her within his arms, ignoring the world and everything on it. Yes, once he finishes his tasks within the crew, he will definitely return to Konoha and make sure his blonde Kunoichi will remain safe as she continues to reach for her dreams. She will become his Hokage. Believe it. Interlude. Neji 2. Ever since he fought her, Hyuga Neji's outlook in life changed. There's still this profound hatred for the main branch, but it is a bit different from the one he felt before. It is more controlled. Directed to a very few that continues to separate their clan into two. He now knows who to blame. Regardless, he decided to be better than them, just like what his father wants for him. To do something meaningful for himself. The words he left for him makes him want to prove to them that they aren't different just because of this mark. Gai-sensei approves proudly. So when he decided to observe the girl who made him see he is not a stalker, thank you very much, he is intrigued. She speaks as if she knows that she's the same like him. Lee gave him a knowing look while Tenten is kind of perplexed with his sudden interest and decided to follow his lead. Uzumaki Naruto doesn't seem so different from anyone else's. Perhaps the same as Lee with their unending will to prove themselves. However, everyone surrounding the girl says otherwise. Even if he never really talked to them at all. The pirate who's always with the blonde did notice him the other day. Returning his look curiously despite the distance. Observing him, it was the Uchiha himself who confronted him. Asking his intentions, Neji can see the protectiveness in his gaze. As he didn't know the answer just yet, he did felt the satisfaction when the other genin ordered him, the nerve of this bastard, to stay away from the Uzumaki or the other blonde will make him. The said blonde who they call Marco did chuckle in response and interrupted their confrontation. I suppose it can't be helped. Naruto does like to make new friends, yoi. Agreeing to that comment, he did saw Marco's darkening look when Sasuke mentioned the Suna brat. The girl in question looks at them quizzically and muttered incoherently to herself when the two ignored her questions but huffs in response as she tugs him along and left the drama behind. Don't mind these two. For whatever Kami-forsaken reason, they don't like anyone outside our team. Huh, he did gave the two a smirk when the girl worriedly fretted over his injuries from their last fight. Hilarious. Chapter 34. Part 33. Sakura's teeth worked back and forth on her lower lip as she waited with the others. Shikamaru, the only one from their age group that was promoted to Chunin, is sitting forlornly at the opposite lounge and looks uncharacteristically awake. A mission entrusted to him to bring back one of their own, a deserter. It was a failure that no one speak out for reasons unknown. But she did heard his father talk to him earlier. How he can use this opportunity to work out the holes in his strategy and be better. Even if Nara-san's encouragement is for his son, the Pinkett knew that it can also be applied to her. The three Suna shinobis that assisted the retrieval team are standing near the window with the not-so-scary-anymore looking Gaara, who is staring at the room where Naruto was admitted into. His demeanor is kind of different. He looks the same and yet, not. Karen does look calm beside her, which means their blonde Uzumaki is okay. While Haku is helping the other medics in treating the injuries of the squad, particularly the Hyuga prodigy, Kiba and his partner Akamaru, while the Hokage and Shizune are dealing with Choji, who is the worst of the lot. Clenching her hands tightly, the girl knew that she can never do anything helpful. Even if she came, she doubts her presence will stop him from leaving. That Sasuke has, that he left Konoha. He left Team 7. Feeling a gloved hand on top of her head, Sakura saw her sensei giving her a knowing look. It wasn't the eye smile he frequently gives them whenever they did something cheeky. It was his serious one. The Jonin didn't utter any words, and yet his visible eye gave her the encouragement she needs. That she need to make her own path, choose the road she wants to take. Just like what the rest of Team 7 did. Raising her head, Naruto's grip on top of her arms that rested upon her knees tightened and continues to ignore the commotion she felt outside. Seems like all the rookies that are not included in the retrieval mission are here. Glancing sideways, she saw Marco sitting beside her bed. His presence did help calm and collect her thoughts. Sasuke's eyes held something within, and she didn't understand what it is, and that his voice no longer held its usual warmth as he talked to her. Said his goodbyes. Naruto. Avoiding his gaze, the blonde burrows her face within her arms. She felt the phoenix shifted and the sound of slight scrapping made by his chair as it was dragged closer to her bed. The Uzumaki pointedly ignored him as she took her bedcover over her form and faces the window to look at the scenery outside. Hearing him sigh, Naruto bit her lips from reaching out and seek his comfort. How his warm embrace chase away her loneliness and all the negative emotions she feels inside. Kabuto's out of danger, yoi. Thatch is staying with him at the moment while Haku is busy assisting the others. How's Choji? Pausing slightly even if her question is a diversion, Marco turned his head in another direction as he tried to sense the Akamichi from the other room. The operation has ended. The boy's chakra may have depleted but not enough to be a danger. He will make full recovery. Breathing a sigh of relief, Naruto removes her blanket and hops down the bed. Where do you think you're going, yoi? Turning her to face him, and curses internally for the tears that threatens to fall from her eyes, Marco gently held her chin and waited for her to look at him in the eyes. It took a moment, but her answer made him want to burn this village and kill a few select people even more. I need to talk to Gigi. I need to ask him what Sasuke meant. Touching his hands, Naruto held it firm and pushed it away from her. It felt cold, but I need to confirm the emotions I sensed from his older brother. Why, it contradicts everything I heard about the man who destroyed their clan. She needs to do this on her own. Nodding, the pirate stand and walked over the window, opening it wide. It's too crowded outside. We'll take to the roofs, and Naruto did tug him back and whispered. I need to do this alone, Marco. Please. Minutes passed and he studied her determined expression, and he felt conflicted when Naruto held her chin high. Finally nodding in acquiescence, the phoenix wipes her tears away. I understand. I will wait for you here, yoi. Thankful, the blonde throws herself at him. Even before he can react, Naruto jumps out of the window to look and confront the Sandame. His expression remains guarded as he went out of the room. Sakura hastily approaches him to check on Naruto, but her face fell seeing an empty room. Passing by the girl and clapping her shoulders reassuringly, he paused when he reaches Kakashi. As usual, the Jonin is blocking everyone with that book of his, but he could sense the turmoil within. With another sigh, he left the man to his own dilemma and gave the visiting shinobis a polite nod. Catboy, whose makeup is somewhat different from the last time, still looks at him warily. As he entered Kabuto's room, wondering why Thatch is standing outside, he saw the village leader with the Jonin commander inside. Karen, who followed, froze rigidly behind him but decided to stay with the other pirate. The silver-haired teen returned his look with a bland wave as he quietly thanked Shizune, who removed his bandages. The brat went ahead to see Sensei Huh. Crossing her arms, the Senju studied him curiously. And you're here because... Chuckling darkly, he sat near the window and covered his face with a hand to hide the darkening gaze of his eyes, knowing that his bluish-colored fire might came out uncontrollably as he ignored the question. His anger for not being able to do anything and help Naruto makes him so irritated. Huh, is that so? Interesting. The woman commented as if she knew his answer. TCH. These shinobis are really nosy. How very annoying. Rolling her eyes from the pirate's self-condemnation, Tsunade can understand the protectiveness given her assessment of the teen's personality. She turned to look at Kabuto, who seems to have fully recovered. Seems like his ability to regrow the damaged tissues even surpasses her own. An ability she already heard of before, but unsurprising to know that someone already mastered it given the woman who took him in. Yakushi Nono is a very talented Iryo nin that is so focused on her job and her excessive want to perfect tissue regeneration. Now that she thought about it, the said medic returns her gaze cautiously, who joined the pirate in his seat. Seems like Marco had already won his loyalty. Pity. Given our current circumstances, you will be joining the pirates on their travel back with another shinobi of my choosing, and to ensure your safety until we can sort out the issue with Orochimaru. And of course, you will help their captain in regards to his medical condition as part of Konoha's entourage and an act of goodwill. Surprise etching Kabuto's features, the Godime smirked and handed his Hitai-8 back. Despite everything, you are a citizen of this village and that your mission may have deviated from what was originally intended. But now that a new path is presented, I hope that you will remain true to yourself, protect what matters the most and the things you have found. Kabuto never felt so. He never felt so accepted. A reminder of the before with the blurry faces of his adoptive mother and siblings. Arriving at the last and possibly highest building overlooking the residential district, Naruto can see the Sarutobi compound from here. Using Kagura's eye, Karen Nei-chan mentioned that it was the name of the technique she uses, which was surprisingly an Uzumaki-only ability. She sensed the old man in his courtyard watching the darkening of the sky as his current pastime after his retirement. His Anbu guards are nowhere in sight, but perhaps the old man knew that she's coming and asked them to allow her passage. Not that it stopped her before. Or perhaps they just tolerated her presence. They are indeed familiar, judging from their chakra signature. The hidden guardians from her youth. Taking a deep breath, she stands silently behind him and waited to be acknowledged. She knew that her presence was already felt, judging from the fluctuations of his chakra. With a gentle motion of his hands, she approaches carefully and sits beside her. Gigi. Apologies won't be enough, but I hope you will find it in your heart to forgive me for everything. Tears fell, but Naruto wipes them away. Gigi's sadness, and whatever this burden he carries, makes him look older than what he normally does. So she did what she can to comfort the old man. Tried to tell him that everything is going to be okay, but no words came. So she did what she can still do. She sits down in front of him and places her head on top of his lap and closes her eyes. Several seconds later, she felt his hands caressing her wild blonde locks. From there and then, she promised to herself, she's just going to work harder, in order to make things right. To drag the Tem and his older brother back home. That is a promise. Or she'll die trying. Not that she's going to accept death without fighting back. Especially now. It was a very uneventful night, but Haku woke up early the next day to help prepare the last meal they will share together. She can hear Thatch's voice, who is having an animated conversation with Kabuto about their trip. Even if she wanted to come, since Naruto is going on another journey of her own, she decided to stay, knowing that the new member of their family, Karen, and Sakura herself will remain in Konoha to start their training under the Hokage to become a full-fledged medics. Even with her current knowledge, she decided to enlist as well so that she can expand her abilities to help her friends, to help her new family. Karen is starting to wake up with a grumble as she tried to remove the sleepiness from her eyes. Strangely enough, Naruto-chan isn't here. She probably never slept, something to worry for later. She also cannot sense Marco-sama. They're going to that place. Naruto-sama said last night that she'll say her goodbyes to her parents. The redhead explained as she started to dress up for today. The empty clearing that remains vacant to any kind of life form still has the flowers she left that day. Still forbidden from everyone because of the Kyuubi's leftover chakra, Naruto took a deep breath and replaces the flowers with a new one. Unsurprised that she isn't alone, and the only person who can go here aside from her, she turned to face the newcomer who followed her in a respectable distance ever since she left their house. With an apologetic hum, she gave Marco a small smile as he reaches for her shoulder and stands beside her on the clearing with a bouquet of his own. He then held her hand and gave it a firm squeeze. Both of them wait for the sun to rise, and its colors cannot be compared to anything. Well, except for Marco's flames. But yeah, are you ready to go, Yoi? Shaking her head, Naruto responded truthfully in a small voice. Honestly, I'm a little scared knowing the uncertainty of our tomorrow. Raising one finger to stop Marco's tirade, she nudges his side and tugs his hand. But I decided to stop thinking about the past, and the things I cannot change. So I promised to myself to move forward. To be better than I was before. And to become what I was meant to be, for you, for the people that are precious to me. With a smile brighter than the sun, Naruto gave her pirate a kiss on his cheeks and lets go of his hand. We are going to see each other again, right? The hopeful expression on her face is something he will always remember. A reminder. Nodding, Marco took the blonde Kunoichi into his arms despite her slight protest as he tucked her under his chin. Yeah, we will definitely see each other again, Yoi. That's a promise. They will never voice it out loud, but the way they tightly held one another cemented their promise. At exactly 8 o'clock, there are a few bystanders waiting near the front gates. Some are familiar faces like Team 9's Lee that for whatever reason is doing his usual training regimen on that location while Team 8's Hyuga Hinata is peeking at the corner of one of the establishments. Their entourage, mainly the Uzumaki household barring the Phoenix and their unofficial clan head, Naru-chan, are standing in a loose circle beside the guard station. Hokage-sama will make an appearance as per Shizune-senpai's missive with Jiraiya-sama, who will accompany the pirates to the gateway and continue on their own training that might take 2 to 3 years. Enough time to make their own preparations. Where the hell are they? The Toad Sanin growled frustratingly as he was politely ignored by everyone. Karen's lips quirked amusingly and turns her head elsewhere when the older man looked at her as if to confirm their location. Not that she'll ever tell. Thatch-san is oblivious while Kabuto is busy reading his book. Hiku took pity and gave him an answer, not that it calmed the man for one bit. Minutes later, a fiery shadow circles the area and having been exposed to the teen's overwhelming chakra, Karen's eyes widen in awe at finally seeing the pirates' other form and waves a hand towards the newcomers. With a cheer, Naruto-sama waves back and curses unexpectedly when Marco transformed back into his human form midway in the air. He drops majestically without damaging the road that shows his agility and carries the younger blonde effortlessly. The said Uzumaki pouted childishly towards the pirate as they are both swarmed by everyone. She can see the amusement coming off the blonde pirate. I'm going to miss them, Hiku noted absent-mindedly, but the redhead gave her a comforting smile and cheered her up. It will be quick, but let's count together until the day we're all back home again, yeah. She's right. Waiting doesn't sound so bad after all. Interlude, Sasuke. So this is what it feels like. There's no words to describe the agony he felt seeing Naruto's broken expression. He can also imagine Sakura's face from looking at the blonde. Feeling her heart break and the mask she took to hide her pain after he said his goodbyes, his reason for leaving. It was indescribable. Perhaps if he's truthful to himself, he would have told her everything. Why he needed to do this. Why he need to leave. But, Itachi may have not told me his reasons, but I think he wanted you to stay as you are, he wanted you to remain proud of your family. So he took it upon himself to carry those responsibilities. The task that I never really wanted him to take, with a sigh, the third Hokage added sadly in a whisper. A mistake that will forever mark my failure to protect your clan. With a rueful smile, the Sandaime shakily stands from his wheelchair despite his initial protest and drops on his knees in front of him. I can never bring them back, but I hope you can still give Konoha another chance. As he ignored her pleas and let the other rookies face off the snake bastard's minions one by one, already knowing that they will defeat the intruders, he steeled his resolve and looks at her one more time. He took this task so that he can understand what he'd been through. The sacrifices he can do for their family, Izumi and Shisui's own sacrifices. For the village, for his team, it was all for Konoha even if he knows that it was all for them and them alone. Konoha failed me, and because of that, I decided to forsake her. So even if I don't want you to think less of me, I want you to let me go. As he allowed his illusion to cloud her eyes, Uchiha Sasuke gently took her in his arms and embraced the only person who accepted him, faults and all. Are you sure you'll be fine from here on, Yoi? Not even surprised when the phoenix approaches them and took the blonde Kunoichi into his own arms. HN. With a bland smile, Marco eyed him thoughtfully. He did not even hesitate to look at him in the eyes despite his activated Sharingan. As long as you remember the reason why you're doing this, you'll be fine. Wondering why the pirate doesn't even attempt to stop him from going. Seeing the confusion in his face, the older teen sighed and secured Naruto carefully in his arms. From what I've been told, once you accepted that Hitai ate, you are old enough to make your own decisions. And if this is what you want, who am I to stop you? Marco, I'm so. With a shake of his head, the phoenix gave him comforting smile and nodded in farewell. There's no need to apologize, Yoi. Besides, this is only the beginning of your very own adventure, yeah. There's much to see and so many things to do. He added flatly that the snake bastard is dangerous, so he must be careful. That is true. A path different from what he had planned for him. He cannot wait and see the disappointment in Itachi's eyes. Hey, Chapter 35, Omake, Marco. I see you. Ever since he woke up, he couldn't stop thinking about those cerulean blue eyes that even in his waking hours continues to hunt him. And then his hands started to have a mind of their own. The eyes began to have a face. 3 whisker-like birthmarks adorned both cheeks. Sun-kissed skin and long flowing blonde hair which is much brighter than his own, and wilder. Her eyes was his solace. Especially after the accident that almost took his life. When his adoptive father saw his paintings, he was mystified at first, and yet he didn't ask him any questions as to who the mysterious girl is. He even supported his newfound hobby and didn't push through additional appointments with his heavily tattooed psychiatrist, Dr. Trafalgar D. Waterlaw, unlike his troublesome brothers who teases him till his patience ran out and literally threw them out of his apartment. Izo and Whitey Bay thinks it was hilarious. Him losing his patience to everyone's teasing and not the teasing itself. Hey. It was one of those boring days when the whole family, much to Ace's chagrin, are required to attend their father's sponsored gala. Seems like billionaire philanthropist Edward Newgate decided to involve himself in politics. It was to back up a promising young politician by the name of Minato Namikaze. I knew his parents, two-thirds of the legendary Sanin. Very influential in their own right. With a chuckle, his father looked at him meaningfully in the eyes. Marco knew that there is more to this sponsorship. Unless it involves their family, affects their business or anything that may have caught his father's interest, he will surely tell him, if needed. Probably. Not that the man needed my assistance as he is another force to be reckoned with in this particular industry, his father figure noted as he stroked his crescent-shaped mustache. Before he can even react, the said politician was introduced. Thatch's eyes widen though. As his brother is standing beside him, Marco can see the other's astonishment. All the same, he is a bit surprised as well. Never did he imagine that the face who continues to hunt him is a man. And yet, deep in his heart, he knew that they are entirely different. Not the same person. There's the color of their eyes and the hair that does have the same shade in his memories and his paintings, yet the shape of their face is. A relative perhaps. Hope blossoms inside his chest. Then he was led to Namikaze's wife. A fiery rambunctious woman with hair red as blood. Heiress of the famed clan that was known in the archaeological world for discovering lost civilizations. For whatever reason, Kushina Uzumaki Namikaze's own eyes widen upon seeing his stilled form. He thought it was recognition just like what his brother felt. But the woman laughs heartily in response to her husband's inquiry and greeted him as if she knew him or his deepest secrets. Patting his cheeks adoringly despite the height difference and ignored her husband's amusement beside them, the woman talks to them with enthusiasm. So, where's your children? Absent-mindedly, his father suddenly asks the two. Finally escaping the suffocating environment that slightly caught his interest, the couple did shake in his world. He took a deep breath and loosened his tie. Taking out a piece of cigarette he pilfered from his brother's customized case, Thatch's gift from Izo, he was about to light it up, and hopefully it will lessen the tension he feels inside when he heard slight rustling of leaves from above. The tree does give a good platform for those who wanted to take a climb. Perhaps similar to what he wanted and get away from this place. Too bad someone already beats him for the said spot. Don't push me. I'm gonna fall. You're the one who's pushing me, idiot. Go down and stay inside. Mom wanted to introduce you to somebody. So let's go already. And it's dark in here. Creepy even. The more reason for me to stay here then. Tell her you didn't see me. I'm not gonna lie to her. She'll definitely know. Stop hanging out with Hina-chan. You will definitely corrupt her innocence. Don't drag Hinata into this, you wench. Couldn't stop himself from laughing out loud and surprising the two. The voices fell with a loud thump. He apologized mentally though. Thankfully enough, the surrounding area under their tree are littered with dry leaves that cushioned their fall. Approaching them quietly, Marco held his hand to assist the female voice upright. She's wearing one of Izo's creation, the pale-colored orange satin that reminded him of her when he first saw the dress. The light coming from the hall did gave him good enough visibility, seeing wild blonde locks ruffled by their unexpected fall, while the other one has blood-red hair similar to the people he met minutes earlier. They must be the children of the said couple. But then, time stopped as the owner of the female voice looked back at him. And then he saw her eyes. Her hand that grasped his own tightened as if she recognizes him too. The night breeze was faint, but it was like a caress of familiarity and joyful reunion. Finally, looking at her face, his thumb tentatively caresses the skin of her knuckles. Marco felt ecstatic and ignored the brother who looked questioningly towards both of them. And then she smiled in wonder as she returned his touch. Her eyes told him everything he needed to know. He felt, I finally found you. Whole. Chapter 36, Omake, Naruto. Ever since she woke up, she couldn't stop thinking about those dark bluish indigo-colored eyes that even in her waking hours continues to hunt her. Menma already caught her off guard several times since that day, giving him the stink eye with additional threats to his existence conveyed mentally through their connection, lest their mother will freak out if voiced out loud. She slammed the door of her studio into his face, to stop his teasing and avoid the pity in his eyes. Breathing a sigh of relief and jammed the volume of her music player up, she faces her latest project and ignored the rest of the world. A variety of sculptures in several sizes made using various materials of her choosing are placed randomly on every flat surface. Her work table is littered with rough sketches and sample materials she tends to use on her next project. Her biggest one is placed in the middle of her personal haven. The wood stands tall, made of the finest timber she can find in her mother's, technically her grandmother's, property. Fully removing the linen that covers it, she took her tools and climbed on one of her ladders. Gently cradling his cheek to greet him for that day's session, her hands started working automatically to even out the rough edges. Where are you? The appendages she added the day before spreads like angel's wings, and that the said man was sent down from above to watch over her. I will protect you with my life. Her mother, who is the only person welcomed inside this place, looks in awe for her new creation while her father expertly hid his worry, kept his distance and stays out of her studio unless invited verbally. Minato Namikaze gave her a proud smile when she decided to become more productive of her time. She pointedly ignored the rebellious stage of her life that continues to flare in the background of her mind. A time when she wanted everything to end. Even her existence. Then that night happened. Everything changes and yet it wasn't noticeable from someone else's perspective. But the people close to her all felt that she's no longer the same. It was then Naruto started to see a face. And a memory of her previous life. I will find you again, I promise. She never mentioned it to her parents, knowing how they'll both fret for her even more. So she asked Menma to keep it quiet, that her brother agreed on, but decided to be the bane of her existence by constantly bugging her to seek help professionally. And along the way tried to match her up with his friends, including that weird athlete with the bowler-styled haircut similar to his trainer, or the dog fanatic that is way too feral for her tastes. Her best friend Hinata, who Menma really likes but was too scared to make a move and couldn't get his wits gathered when the said woman is in the same vicinity, is a great help in her own inconspicuous way. However, she was also cajoled by her twin and recommended a few guys of her own, including her snobby cousin Neji and her younger sister's psychiatrist, the infamous Trafalgar Law. That particular guy will probably gave her father a heart attack if they did take things seriously. The tattoos itself are his own bout of rebellion, and she happens to know the tale about those markings, but disregarding the reason why they were brought together, she happened to like the man and they became very good friends. I know you're there, Blondie, yeah. So pick up the damn phone. We need to talk. Ignoring her phone, eventually wondering why she gave the doctor her personal number, she carefully scraped the excess wood from his chin and answered dutifully after a few minutes of contemplation, or he'll bug her until she eventually gives it, tapping the earpiece on her ear to answer the call. What's up, Tarao-kun? Trafalgar responded with a grunt, and even if he's not here, she can immediately guess that the man rolled his eyes in response to the pet name she adapted from Luffy, another mutual friend they both share. My client happened to invite me to this particular event. And I need someone to show off to my uncle. And since this is your father's first public appearance under that billionaire's name, it is your duty to accompany me. Huh, that is today. Huffing exasperatedly, the man acknowledges the question and added that he'll pick her up at 7. With that bossy tone of his, demanded to move her ass out of her imaginary world and reminds her to wear the pretty dress he had sent the day before. If it wasn't for the color, she will never ever wear it. With a despondent sigh, she placed her tools down and take a look at him. The sculpture is almost lifelike, and if one looks closely enough, can see the adoration on its expression. It was always the same look from her memories, and Naruto felt that she is never alone. I miss you so. ... It was one of those boring days when she is required to attend one of her father's campaign. Though it felt different from whatever reason. Her twin's eyes sharpened curiously when she muttered it seconds before they are greeted by their host. Edward Newgate is a large man whose presence outweighs everything she had heard about the billionaire. With his peculiar crescent-shaped mustache, his expression upon seeing her gave her the chills when he was introduced to them. The reaction of his adoptive daughter, Izo, also makes her want to bolt out of that place at once. If it wasn't for Trafalgar's firm grip on her back, she might have run away and not looked back, regardless of her mother's disappointment. During the night, she meets several men that was enthusiastically introduced by her father, and if it wasn't for Tarao's presence, she'll be dragged into another insufferable night. Sadly enough, her shield stumbled upon both his lovers, surprised to see them in his uncle's domain, and left her apologetically in haste, promising to make it up to her. Don't worry about it. I already shown my face tonight, so I'll probably escape in a few minutes or so. Waving away his concerns, she pushes him towards Sabo and Koala. The three of them looked so good together and smiled in response to the brunette's shy greeting. Not even wondering how Tarao complimented each other, making their triad work so well. Taking a flute of champagne and drank it in one gulp, much to the waiter's surprise. She steadily makes her way out after giving him a polite smile. As she is in the opposite direction of the only exit, she decided to spend a few more minutes until her father's sponsor will came up front to acknowledge him publicly in front of all these people. She did find a low tree which she can use to hide outside. Knowing that Tarao wouldn't mind if she rips this dress, she climbed the tree carefully, still mindful of her skirt, and sat on the thickest branch she can find. Too bad she no longer smokes just to kill more time, so she decided to gaze at the stars for the rest of the night and mentally prepared her next project. Perhaps it is time to start planning how to find him, using her sculptures. Hinata even suggested posting them on social media. What are you doing here? Menma asks and effortlessly climbs the same tree and sits beside her. She had this urge to push her twin away, but knowing how persistent the redhead is, she begrudgingly allowed his presence and snorted in response. Then there is this other not-so-intruder that went to the farther side of the garden as if he or she has business of their own, so she ignored them and focuses her attention to the current bane of her existence. What do you think? Laughing amusedly upon seeing her disgruntled reaction, Menma gave her a few desserts he pilfered from one of the waiters as a sign of apology. It was her favorite, so she forgave his interruption in this temporary solace of hers. But just the same, she tried to shove him off. He did nudge her back. How annoying. Don't push me. I'm gonna fall. You're the one who's pushing me, idiot. Go down and stay inside. Mom wanted to introduce you to somebody. So let's go already. And it's dark in here. Creepy even. The more reason for me to stay here then. Tell her you didn't see me. I'm not gonna lie to her. She'll definitely know. Stop hanging out with Hina-chan. You will definitely corrupt her innocence. Don't drag Hinata into this, you wench. The unknown from earlier who remained quiet during their squabbling probably just started to notice the monkeys arguing on top of the tree couldn't stop themselves from laughing out loud and surprises the both of them. Because of that, she may have tugged Menma down and they fell with a loud thump. Thankfully enough, the surrounding area under their tree are littered with dry leaves that cushioned their fall. But she did dug her elbow beneath and her twin brother groaned painfully in response. Serves him right. Approaching them quietly, the shadow, it was a tall man, held his hand to assist her upright. The light coming from the hall didn't give her enough visibility, but she did notice a nice set of shoes and an expensive-looking three-piece suit. The stranger does have a shaved head with blonde hair on top that reminds her of those Native Americans she watches from her youth, and a certain tropical fruit. And then, time suddenly stopped as she finally saw his face up close. And then she saw his eyes. Her breath hitches up and the hand that took her own tightened involuntarily as if he recognizes her too. The night breeze was faint, but it was like a caress of familiarity and joyful reunion. Finally, studying his face, Naruto felt his thumb tentatively caresses the skin on top of her knuckles and she returned it with a firm squeeze of her own. Naruto felt ecstatic and ignored her brother who looked questioningly towards the two of them. And then she smiled in wonder as he returned her touch. His eyes told her everything she needed to know. She felt, I finally found you. Whole. Chapter 37. Part 34. Somewhere in the supposed to be weakest of the four seas, a certain man with gravity-defying hairstyle observes the floating restaurant in front of him with a speculative eye. Pulling his cloak securely around his body, he laughed quietly when his pet tugged him towards the said establishment. Giving him a stern look, Pakun may have rolled his eyes in annoyance if he did allowed him. Alright, I know you're hungry and the smell inside is appetizing. But we do need to. Huffing, the dog would have scolded him in response when another set of customers came. Men wearing white uniforms with the word, Marine, printed proudly behind their backs. Some carry weapons and a few stayed by the door as if to stand guard. There are two who carried themselves quite differently than the others and did caught his eye just because he can visually sense their chakra. Frowning, Hitaki Kakashi carefully carried his companion and removes the harness on Pakun's body so that his dog can sit comfortably in one of the vacant chairs. They were approached by one of the waiters. If it wasn't for the commander's forewarning, he may have shown his dismay for being greeted by a barbarian, or looks like one instead of a pretty waitress. Welcome to Barati, I am Patty and will be your server for today. Ignoring Pakun's snickering who saw his reaction, he ordered his meal and something for his pet. Casually observing the other diners and the not-so-noticeable group of men, Kakashi pulled out a set of new bounties he pilfered from that day's newspaper and checked a few names that interest him and may have heard in passing. From his peripheral vision, he saw an old man with a wooden peg leg talking to another all-too-familiar face wearing a chef's uniform and pompadoured hairstyle near the enlarged wanted poster of a certain pirate rookie that is part of a crew that is currently causing ruckus in several places on these seas. Then he heard the whispers when the taller man turns to face the crowd and greets him with a cheery wave upon spotting his location. Is that? I can't believe this, he's alive. Thatch of the Whitebeard Pirates. Ignoring the chatter and the attention the man receives, thinking what kind of problems he may encounter for being associated with him, Kakashi took a bite from his meal and had this urge to moan in delight. The taste is indeed delicious, and if it wasn't for the commander's teasing wink, he will never know that the said man prepared his meal. I will not ask the significance of the said mask since my Naruto or the others have never seen your face without it, but is the illusion really necessary, yoi? A not-so-welcomed voice interrupted his meal and he had this urge to growl in response for the term he used to address Naruto. The nerve of this pirate scum. Knowing that genjutsu is one of the other's weakness, Kakashi side-eyed the man-turned-teen beside him and nods dubiously to himself. Even with the said information, he doubts using it will give him an edge against the pirate in battle. Pakun snorted and finishes his meal. He does have a point, you know. Patting his companion's head, the famed Jonin of the elemental nations gave them an eye smile as he replaces his mask and dispels the illusion. From everyone's view, his plate is already empty with his favorite book in hand. Yes, asking that question is something I'd rather not answer since it isn't something I am comfortable with even after. Clearing his throat, he waves his hand evasively, even after my father's death. Humming interestedly, Marco didn't push through any other inquiries but places his chin on top of his palm and lazily observes Thatch's poor attempt to appease the former pirate while sensing the truth from his spoken words. It was then another unexpected encounter came to their table when the light-haired Marine, one of the two men from earlier, drops his glass upon seeing the blonde sitting beside him. Marco the Phoenix. He wonders if he can get that dessert Thatch promised earlier, ignoring the whispers that started to grow stronger around him. Returning to the blue seas does feel nostalgic. Thatch himself hums agreeably beside him. Their other companion nods in appreciation after seeing the unending sea on that first day. Strangely enough, they arrived in between the reverse mountain and East Blue. They came out from the same large pillars they went into with a familiar set of symbols. He did remember Naruto's super secret journal about Fuinjutsu that she's been studying on her own. The said journal was found hidden in one of the apartment's concealed floorboards when they expanded the kitchen, which happened to unlock after Naruto accidentally pricked her finger and droplets of her blood scattered on top of wood. Marco did control his flinch when he saw her bleeding, something that didn't escape Thatch's watchful eyes. Kakashi himself looks shaken seeing the markings and those stone monoliths in the outskirts of Uzushio, while the silver-haired medic explained the meaning behind these seals and a brief history of the fallen village. Seems like his Naruto isn't the last from her clan. Well, Karen is an unexpected find. But knowing that there are more Uzumakis running around, especially in these seas, or anywhere in it, finding a few of them will definitely make her happy. If that's the case, then locating her family and introducing her will be in his next agenda. Firstly, find the idiot, given that Ace did left their crew for his own selfless reasons makes him want to punch the man regardless. And then their crew. Either one works as he isn't picky. After sorting everything out including Oyaji's sickness and their territories, he will finally focus on himself and Naruto's dream. Finding the rest of her family is just an added bonus. Hey, seems like that woman's luck knows no bounds. Not that he minded really. Becoming Naruto's shadow will make sure that no harm may come before her. After all, seeing Naruto's smile trumps everything else. Even if it is Akainu's so-called justice and his magma-covered fists. Somewhere in the ruins of a fallen kingdom found in the New World. Luffy stilled when he felt his world shaken, as in quite figuratively. Van Augur, who was working with him on their next expansion project, drops his own map in surprise hearing the said noise. Shadows started to creep out from their captain's room. Feeling the danger within, he motioned for the other man to bring the documents and cautiously transferred into another area. Much farther away from the Yami Yami no Mi user. Sighing, Luffy wipes the trepidation off his face just in case new recruits happen to pass by their temporary abode. Better to keep up appearances regardless of any situation they may face from Blackbeard's unpredictable ability. Seems like it is more worse than before. Doc Q burst surprisingly into their room and he thankfully controlled a startle unlike the other. With a curse, Van Augur threw a marker towards the newcomer. With bated breath, Doc Q thrusts the newspaper into their direction with a frantic look. Seeing its content did nothing but add further worry to his earlier predicament. Perhaps he'll take that mission Burgess wanted just so he can steer clear from whatever is going to happen once his captain learns that the man he stole his devil fruit from is still alive. Seems like the rumors surrounding these devil fruits are indeed real if Blackbeard cannot control his ability because its chosen user is still alive. How very troublesome. As someone who lived all his life on land, Kabuto never understood the appeal in living on the wide expanse of open waters. Perhaps that lighthouse would be a better alternative. But then, well, if our options are several islands with an ever-changing weather or those controlled by maniacal people who believes they are better than anyone, looking at Marco who chuckles in response to Thatch's words. The choice is obvious, kid. Besides, what is better than the sea who welcomes everyone regardless of where they come from and how they live their life? Perking up hearing Marco's spoken words, he started to ask questions about the different species found on these seas. Be they human or another. He did have an enlightening conversation with the lighthouse and whale keeper they met after traversing that treacherous mountain. There is more to learn. The said man immediately recognizes the two Whitebeard commanders on that first glance and agrees to give them a spare boat they can use to reach their next stopover. Begrudgingly, Marco continuously ignored their other annoying chaperone who accompanied them on this trip. Not that he needed a protector. Technically speaking, he is Jonin level and he is yet to reveal his actual strength and abilities. Not that the blonde pirate didn't notice the deception. Or perhaps, he was sent to spy on him and possibly annoy the pirate who took a liking to Konoha's resident Jinchuriki. Hitaki Kakashi laughs humorously and blocks his gaze with the perverted Sanin's latest book as if reading his thoughts. From the information provided by Zephoji and Crocus-san, the crew safely escaped Marineford courtesy of a certain flaming turkey, ignoring the slight twitch in Marco's brow and his ever-present scowl. Come to think of it, the said face remained ever since they passed through the gateway, or perhaps after they parted ways with a certain blonde-haired Kunoichi. Thatch opened a map and marked several locations as he explained their next course of action. The Jonin took a peek and uses the telescope he handed over to scope their next destination from afar. I do see a few ships coming from that direction all the way from that side. With a pause, Kakashi scratches his cheek and hands the spyglass back to Marco. Looks unfriendly though. The blonde agreed with a frown after eyeing the direction the Jonin mentioned. I don't want to deal with these guys unless absolutely necessary, yoi. But then he sensed a somewhat familiar presence and groaned dejectedly, giving Thatch an opportunity to tease him, who also noticed the incoming presence that caught his attention. Kabuto saw a coffin-shaped boat with a lone man sitting inside of it. Isn't this great? We're on the right route then. His friend laughs out gleefully and waves towards the world's greatest swordman who didn't return his greeting, but Marco knows that the warlord's scrutinizing gaze is directed towards him and the unknowns with them. Just what he needed. Damn it, yoi. Sailing from a safe distance, the contingent from Konoha and several pirates watches the commotion before them. Ignoring the floating girl beside them, Kakashi whistles in awe upon seeing the destruction the Marines caused to destroy the pirate ship, or was it an island? Or a submarine? They also see the man from earlier effortlessly slices a gigantic cannonball in two using a very large sword similar to Kubikiribocho that will probably affect their current location if it reaches its intended target. From the wreckage hidden from the Marine's frontal view, another ship emerges with the pirate girl, Perona, supplying who it belongs to, another warlord by the name of Boa Hancock, the world's most beautiful woman. Humming interestedly, Kabuto looks at Kakashi who shrugged his shoulders dismissively. Perhaps it is yet to be proven as we have our own standards back home. Tapping a finger on his covered cheek, the silver-haired Jonin added with an eye smile that urges the devil fruit user to float further away in fear. But it won't hurt to take a closer look, nay. Mentally, the medic brings a palm over his face for the meaning behind Kakashi's words. TCH. Such a pervert. Inside the World Pirate's ship, Marco carefully navigated through empty hallways and the damage brought upon by one Monkey D. Luffy. Sensing them in one of the largest room, he silently observes the fight between Burndy and Ace's little brother from the shadows covers. Wincing slightly when he heard the older pirate's tirade, he knew that the boy remembers everything that happened that day. Granted that he chose to give up his life to save him, that didn't change the fact that the boy is no match from the pirates of the New World. Yet, perhaps his tenacity and never give up attitude will be his tools to get stronger. And be better. Just like one particular shinobi he knows. So when the boy's current attempt finally allowed him a direct hit tasting the air with Ace's fire and his familiar bluish-colored flames, it did surprise him knowing that the young pirate was able to manifest his will and unknowingly procured chakra, reminding him of Kabuto's observations about the similarities between the two during the last minute. When both fell that finally concluded the battle, Marco cautiously approaches Luffy as he eyed the other pirate, but then another figure came from the other side of the room. They looked at one another but didn't stop each other's attempt to tend for their wounded. Closing his eyes, he willed his wings to materialize physically behind his back. Musing idly to himself that his first passenger happens to be another devil fruit user and what it means if he failed to retain this partial wing form, it will probably be fatal to the both of them. With a scoff to himself, spread his wings wider before he turned around to look at World and his older brother. My captain has fallen, and our ship will soon follow. She was a symbol of our freedom. Laughing tiredly, Biojack added in a whisper. I have abandoned them once. I don't want to repeat the same mistakes twice. Nodding in respect, Marco flew without a backward glance just as he felt Burndy recovers and attacked one last time using his ability to launch a gigantic cannon against the Marines. However, the projectile was sliced in half by no other than Mahawk, and the world pirate captain fell lifeless after using the last of his strength. As the ship started to sink because of the Marines' continued bombardment, the first mate stayed by his younger brother's side, forever loyal despite everything. Would you prefer a direct approach? Or a subtle one? Kakashi asks. From his peripheral, he can see Thatch's nonchalant look. And yet the feeling of excitement is clearly visible from the said pirate. Turning to look at Kabuto, the younger man shrugged his shoulders. You're the one who fought with Akiri Nin back in Wave. You were able to copy a few jutsus, right? If he only knew they'll take advantage of his expertise, he shouldn't have come. But the idea of knowing where the phoenix came from or how he came to be is an opportunity he cannot pass. Curiosity surpassed any other emotions he felt for the said teen, with all his secrets to uncover. The choice is quite obvious. You guys owe me a drink. The pompadour-haired pirate laughs in response as he formed the necessary hand signs. When the illusion washes over them, their boat carefully approaches the pirate ship. Kabuto boarded with Perona disappearing, possibly returning to her original body or to her companion from earlier, and left them a few mocking words along the way. On deck, they saw Marco kneeling in front of Boy with his bluish-colored flames while another voluptuous woman crouches beside them, worry clearly visible from her beautiful face. They were hoarded by several women with snakes that are large enough to serve as their makeshift bow with arrows aimed dangerously towards them, idly wondering how they detected his illusion. Thankfully enough, Marco acknowledges their presence and motioned for Kabuto to help treat the wounds of the boy. The woman, who indeed is very pretty, fretted more, but the phoenix assures her that the medic can help. Arriving in Rusukaina several hours later, a very strange island that has 48 seasons, they learned that the other man they are looking for left a few days ago. Marco doesn't seem to be bothered since the boy he died for is there, who is training to be stronger. So that Marco or anyone else won't sacrifice themselves for any other reason just so he can live another day. Monkey D. Luffy is a one-odd kid that reminds him of one Uzumaki Naruto. Mentioning it to the older men earned him a droll stare from Marco, a flabbergasted look Thatch's, and a disbelieving reaction Kakashi's. The human physiology of a Paramesha-type devil fruit does intrigue him to an extent, and decided to study the boy knowing that it will help treat the sickness of another. Then there's the matter with Thatch's sudden affinity with darkness. The Phoenix did eye his friend incredulously. I already mentioned this to you before, idiot. How can you forget, Yoi? 'Cause the idea of it is absurd as hell. And too far-fetched and utterly inconceivable even to our own standards. Rolling his eyes at him, the Phoenix raised both hands in frustration. Perhaps the knowledge isn't wide known, but seriously though, what's the big deal? The pompadour-haired pirate muttered in confusion. It's not like I can summon darkness if I wanted to. The elder of the Kuja tribe eyed the man before her. Now she knew what the current user of the Yami Yami no Mi lacks. Using her staff to pull the pirate to her level and continuously ignoring the Snake Empress' poor attempt to snare the rubber boy's affection, tugs his cheeks, peeked on his mouth and stretches his eyelids to take a better look, Gloriosa releases the man and chuckled in response to his indignant reaction. No one really knows how these fruits came to be. But one thing is certain, these fruits will only show themselves to their chosen wielders. Are they sentient? Kabuto asks curiously. No. But if living on these seas taught us anything, is to accept all kinds of weirdness that happens whenever or however. The old woman answered mysteriously as she tapped her snake staff. That isn't even a conclusive explanation. A week passed with Marco disappearing for a few days with the rubber teen. The Snake Empress finally decided to lend them a skiff that will tow their boat across the calm belt with the assistance of one of Kuja's serpents, even giving the rest of them a haughty look enough to scare Thatch or even the self-proclaimed pervert himself. Perhaps Marco is an exemption because of what he did before, and that the recent events convinces her to look at him in respect and gratitude for saving her beloved's life, not that the teen acknowledges her affection. From then on, the voyage was too mundane even for Kabuto's tastes. But the silence is more than enough to focus on his tasks. Marco did give a brief rundown of their captain's symptoms. If what he thinks the old man's health issues are, the condition can still be dealt with if it is still in the early stages. However, his devil fruit. Both commanders looked at one another asking for the same thing. It was Thatch who voiced it out though. What about it? It is called the Guru Guru no Mi, correct? Nodding, the two waited for further explanations when Kakashi called out and pointed an incoming ship. Damn it, there's no flag. I cannot be certain if they are civilians, traders or another. Handing the spyglass to Marco, they waited for any cue that the ship spotted them. Maybe posing as fishermen's would be ideal, but the two are noticeable enough to warrant unwanted attention. Already expecting for the worst, he and Thatch prepared weapons, Kakashi's hands poised to do a seal and cast a genjutsu over them so that they can escape quickly. But then a harpoon was fired from the larger ship even in such distance, and it securely attaches to their boat. Instead of fighting back or cut the line just to give enough range for an illusion, Marco held them back and shook his head. Let's play by the ear for now. Until we determine their threat, we will not fight. He glances at Kakashi, who is regarding the pirate as if it is the first time he saw the teen. Well, he wouldn't blame the man. Even back in Konoha while living together under the same roof, or since the failed invasion, the said blonde always surprises him in every turn. Well, this is quite a surprise, no? A shadow falls before their skiff as everyone looks up, with Thatch warily appraised several men and women on the upper deck with another set weapons entirely different from the ones the Kuja pirates used pointed at them. Marco took the lead and carefully approaches the speaker, who jumps into their vessel despite the distance. Even before the commander can utter any word, the silver-haired Jonin gasps and dropped his hands in shock, seeing the unknown who blocked our path. Why you? Somewhere in the New World. Several ships are sailing near the bay. Some are easily identified as pirate ships. But not just any pirate ships. One was the Moby Dick, the primary vessel of the Whitebeard pirates, along with several others are allies of the crew. Not far from the same coast where the great ship was anchored, a shadow approaches the docks. His fishing rod, somewhat like a props, but his woman refuted the claim before he can say it out loud, drops slightly to the edge of the planks, knowing that his chances to catch dinner is hopefully better than yesterday's. Taking his portable Den Den Mushi out, he called him to report. It'd only take a few rings. Hello. It's me, and I do know that there is one person you wanted me to find and gather intel from, but I don't give a damn about these pirate scums. If this information isn't about the Pirate King's son, I am not interested. But sir, the rumors about some Whitebeard's pirates spotted in East Blue. Their captain is about to keel over. And now that their first mate is dead, the Whitebeard's pirates are no longer considered a threat. He did attempted one more time and mentioned the news he heard earlier from one of his contacts, but the old man didn't even let him start and added the current dilemma they are facing with the upstart trader who may have contributed to the demise of the said crew. He even had the audacity to berate his current lifestyle and how he wastes his life from settling down. After that, he ended the call without even saying goodbye. So typical. If it wasn't from the debt he owed the man, he wouldn't even bother to misspend his time waiting for someone who will never come. If he is on Fire Fist shoes, he will disappear and never return, ever. Granted that the guy has issues with his lineage and all that, he felt sorry for the man called Portgas D. Ace. Then a familiar scent assaulted his senses when two arms wrapped around his neck. Her ash-blonde hair tickled his nose when he turned to face his wife and gets a kiss in his cheeks. Did Baka Ainu ruined our day again, Chuckling, he tugged her down so that they'll both face the expansive view of the sea, and despite the ships that anchored nearby quietly disregarding the flags decorating them, it was indeed a magnificent place he will never grow tired of. The old man's intentions are in the right place even if his methods are questionable. Scratching his day-old beard, former Psi-4 Pol agent Orion Krause noted absent-mindedly and pulled his Remy closer. I happen to be one of those few that knows the man before he became what he is today. Huffing annoyingly, his wife rolled her eyes at him and took the fishing pole from his other hand. Regardless of his humble beginnings, the Red Dog is someone who is as bull-headed as his so-called justice that only sees black and ignores the white or gray ones. The love of his life grumbled and took a can of baits from the basket she brought along. Now then, our dinner needed catching. So go ahead and find me a nice snapper, you lazy fool. Ouch. Unknown to Marco and the entourage from the elemental nations, one of the people they are looking for is watching over a similar gateway, albeit in the opposite end of the red line. That the trauma caused by the events in Marineford, his continued existence, Portgas D. Ace lost his will. Not about dying of course, or the memories of those who gave up their lives to save him might come to a waste. He acknowledges the fact that no one should suffer his presence any longer or he will bring the wrath of the world government upon them. So he decided to cut himself off from the rest of the world, his Nakama, and his younger brother. It will be his penance. Rather than letting them be tainted by his accursed existence, he finally concluded to himself that it is time to leave. True that he's AD and that will never change. That he is not afraid to die. But knowing how his crew, his brother will react or will do in the event that he plans to sacrifice himself, that he doesn't deserve to live, the thought itself is inconceivable. Especially now that one of the people who accepted him regardless of the blood running through his veins died because he existed. That he got too attached. So when he heard about a certain passageway that goes into an unknown land entirely separated from the blue seas, he took the chance without any preamble. The gateway will open in a few minutes from now, the old man he met during this self-exposed exile told him the other day. He was a former resident from that unknown land and entirely different from those he met in Wano. Thinking about Yamato and the little girl, Taking a harsh breath, Ace clutches his chest tightly and failed to respond in time. Despite being blind, the old man patted his shoulders reassuringly as if understanding his pain. If you are really sure about this, to leave everything behind, go beyond the Twin Pillars. It will lead you to a different place, far from those who wanted to harm you. Eyeing the said pillars hesitantly, the pirate willed himself not to care. And yet he hesitated. His emotions, chaotic. Something the stranger did notice. From his own cloak, he took an old tattered scroll with a red insignia stamped in its body by a waxed seal, tracing the symbols reverently. These pillars are made solely for the intention of keeping my family safe, and to keep both worlds separate from one another. The old man shrugged his frail shoulders in humor about something that concerns the two, and Ace thought the storytelling he unexpectedly heard was over. Time passed, so we all decided to keep the purpose of the seal intact but modify it to an extent and allow those who wish to leave their life behind, to start over, as long as they do not have any ill intent towards our clan. There you are Gigi-sama, a younger man whose hair color matches the blood of his fallen Nakama, biting the flesh inside his mouth to stop himself from making any unusual noises, rushes towards them and bows apologetically upon gazing at his stilled form. The younger man did frown seeing his expression and proceeded to scold his grandfather from leaving the safety of their home. Ace may have zoned out in the middle of their conversation as he stared at the scroll in his hands. Contemplating his next move, with a soft tap on his hands, he raises his eyes and the pirate eases away from the old man whose focus can rival Luffy's when it comes to meat, but now the attention is directed at him even if his eyes sees nothing but a shadow. Look for the tall trees, the vast forest with a mountain of carved faces, a village hidden among the leaves. It is a good place to start a new life. They will treat you well as long as you show this scroll. The redhead opens his mouth as if to comment but decided against it when the old man started to walk away. He did turn twice but his attention was suddenly preoccupied by his elder who tried to reach for something in front of them. Finally alone, Ace gave a weary sigh while the pillar in question illuminates brightly as another set of stone monolith located somewhere else signaled the arrival of visitors from the same land he plans to go into. If only Ace turns around, he will notice something strange is happening which will make him question his decision. Blanking out, the D may have struggled internally, feeling the weight of desolation and the need to end everything, even his own life. Ace sits down letting his hair cover his face with his arms surrounding his head to gather his thoughts, thinking of what the old man said. It was already decided even if he didn't learn about the said gateway. As it is, fate wanted to make things so complicated. That and the law of the universe just wanted to screw everything up. With a firm set of his jaw after pulling himself together for the nth time that day, Portgas D. Ace walked through the gateway, ignoring the heavy feeling of his heart without looking back, leaving the blue seas behind, and into the unknown. Interlude, Thatch 2. Passing through the twin pillars of stones and seals does feel familiar even if he never saw one in his entire existence, even on this second life. The feeling is strange but welcomed. Kabuto is cool as a cucumber, but his eyes sparks in wonder knowing that some people from the elemental nations have already known about the blue seas. Perhaps Kakashi's reaction to the pillars are unexpected, but the most noticeable of the group is his best friend. He can see the tension on the blonde's shoulders, especially after turning his back away from Naru-chan, while the girl herself is the worst of them all, and despite the tears in her eyes, she held her chin up and masked her features with that smile Marco hates so much. The Phoenix did told him everything that had happened, and he cannot blame the man-turned-teen for slightly loathing the village and all the damage it brought upon their favorite kunoichi. So finding their crew is their foremost priority. Hopefully it is quicker with the help of Konoha's elite. Kabuto may deny all he wants about the said claim. And along the way, gather the necessary information on how to deal with the traitor who broke apart their family. You're scaring the Cyclops, Thatchy. A slight kick on his shin, he could have squawked in response if it wasn't from the medic's familiar nickname taken from Karen's slip-out that first day. He did pouted petulantly towards Kakashi, who is eyeing him cautiously. Voicing out his apologies, he scratches his head and contemplates the tasks he have in mind while toning down his expression, ignoring Marco's sigh somewhere from his peripheral. Yep, he will make sure to fix everything on their return with the crew, that way Marco can focus on his own love life, or happiness. He is sure Izo and the other commanders, including Oyaji himself, wouldn't mind. Chapter 38, Part 35, Life does go on to some people. Others, well, they continue to cling unto the past, causing unexpected worries to everyone surrounding them. One would say PTHAT living that way is totally unhealthy. To those who exist just for the sake of living, those who always feel regret, they might never find happiness even if it walks straight towards them. So it is up to a select few to keep them grounded. To make them feel they belong. That they are worth something. That's possibly the reason why he have all these opportunities. Marco's eyes widen in realization, ignoring Thatch's curious gaze beside him. Smiling to himself, he scanned the horizon and leaned closely to the edge of the crow's nest, feeling more optimistic than before. Perhaps he never stopped believing that the emptiness of his own heart has already been filled. It was definitely Oyaji's doing, the said pirate's influence in his life. That Naruto and Ace, he will make sure they'll both see their worth, even if he has to sacrifice himself again for their sake. He totally lost it. Ma, we don't even know what's keeping him occupied, Thatch-san. The silver-haired Jonin noted with a tilt of his head as he set aside his perverted book in favor of observing the abrupt change on his reaction. Kabuto huffed and tugs the fisherman's hat away from his bespectacled eyes to study him better. Strangely enough, their attention isn't as annoying as before. Usually happens when the two men gossip like old women, especially if he is the main topic. Ahoy there. Looking down, they saw a young man waving his hand in their direction. Boss wanted to talk to you. Something about one of Shirohage's crew members spotted in Yakioku, the next island where we are en route. Brightening up, the pompadour-haired pirate laughs and gave him a fist bump. Jumping down and almost squashing the unfortunate fellow, if only for a few millimeters, his friend started to bombard the messenger with questions. Humming a tune of an old pirate song, he stood to his full height and feel the wind breezes softly against his skin. Thankfully enough, he is starting to gain those lost inches. And despite his earlier worries, Marco the Phoenix never felt more resolute. Yep, he definitely lost it. The medic hummed agreeably in response to the other shinobi's comment. Idiots. Yakioku Island, several hours later. Izo never felt so irritated. Except for that one time when Thatch accidentally lit her favorite kimono on fire. Eyes glazing minutely, she took a deep breath to compose herself. Even in death, the man never fails to annoy her. She missed him so much. Though for the life of her, she cannot understand why she needs to wait for her purchases, ignoring that time when she's still with Odin-sama and the others back in Wano. Ever since she took Oyaji's mark, she was prioritized upon her entry in every establishment. Not that she is monopolizing this particular store, as there is another customer being assisted by the other attendant. Tapping her manicured nails on top of the counter, the female commander sighed in slight frustration and eyed the rest of the merchandises displayed in the shelves with slight interest. When the other customer left with their own acquisitions, the attendant disappeared by the back door. Thinking nothing of it, the female pirate places a wild strand behind her ear and played with her earrings when the door opens, signaling a new buyer. Izo's hand freezes when she smelled a familiar scent, and then there are voices. Izo, thank God. It really is you. Stop. Let me talk to her first. Without preamble, she releases her gun from under her sleeves and fired. Arriving in Yakioku, the two pirates and Kabuto disembarked along with a few crewmen who will accompany them to find this nakama of theirs. The second in command of the Maelstrom looks back at him distrustfully before following the others. There are a few left behind to prep the ship for their next departure. Kakashi closed his book when he felt a very familiar presence standing beside him. The only woman he thought painstakingly he'd never see again. Seems like I'm right, her voice whispered beside him. And since when did she get too close? About what? Kakashi asks plaintively. With a smile, Uzumaki Kira tugs his mask down and kissed him. A moment's heartbeat passed, she releases his lips even if he wanted to deepen their exchange so badly. Gently, she cupped his cheek as her eyes carefully appraised the visible changes. A finger traces over where his scarred eye is. Obito's Sharingan covered by a medical eye patch. Breathing heavily, he took her hand and placed it near his cheek as he looked upon her face and her own scar marring her skin. He knew that his visible eye shows all the emotions he felt, especially seeing her that day. But this is, that you missed me. This is one of those rare moments that he's thankful to be alive. Taking her into his arms, Kakashi burrows his face into her hair, remembering her scent and another one reminiscent of the world she currently resides on. She has the same familiar shade of red that caught his attention when Kushina-ne-sama introduced them to one another. Just like his sensei, it was the hair at first that caught his attention. Then it was overpowered by her ferocious personality and everything else in between. Perhaps I did. And I am very happy to know you're still alive, Kira, that you are here, with me. And I. Tapping his lips gently, the redhead replaces his mask and then took his hand to lead him towards the helm. I know what you are going to say. But before we tackle ourselves, and there's the issue with my niece, breathing deeply, the woman asks the question he dreads to answer. I want to know how my big sister died. So tell me, her eyes pleading, Kira's hand tugs on his vest. It pains him to see her like this. Pulling her tight against his chest, he kisses the top of her head. Please. His arms held her closer. It was an attack against the village, and then the Kyuubi. With Thatch sulking in front of him, Kabuto couldn't decide if he's going to heal the bullet graze on his cheek, or the bump on his forehead, or laugh at his misfortune. The woman responsible to the commander's unfortunate injuries is being talked into by Marco himself. In a considerable distance, in case something unexpected happens again due to that explosive temper similar to a certain kunoichi he knew. The Phoenix doesn't fare well at first, his youthful appearance is somewhat a surprise, especially for a long-range weapon, but knowing who the opponent is gave him a slight edge. It took a while since the woman knows Haki too. The weapon used is another unknown that may prove to be dangerous to shinobis as well, unless one can raise a wall to block an incoming projectile similar to kunais and shuriken, but much more deadlier. If it wasn't for the stuff he learned back home, the younger-looking pirate will have a harder time convincing the woman of who they really are. After a few minutes with the female pirate hugging Thatch and finally facing one another without any threats whatsoever, he sits beside Marco, who is healing his own injuries. You could have used armament, you know. Chuckling, the pirate gave him an amused look as he explained the pros and cons of using Haki. And if it wasn't from Marco's time in Konoha and observing how a shinobi works during his downtime from pirating, he may not be able to use any variation that can help his battles. Evident on how adaptable the teen is. What about that one, Haoshoku was it? It can be used to overpower enemies. But if they have an equal or stronger will, it may be difficult to defeat them. Or depending who has better stamina and a more unbreakable will, one would definitely fall and the other will be considered a victor. Thatch interjected and Kabuto held himself from laughing out loud and pointedly ignored the hand-shaped bruises decorating both of the older man's cheeks. Marco's eyes did nothing to help, but thankfully enough did follow his lead. Kabuto, meet Izo, she's the 16th Division commander of the Whitebeard Pirates. Izo, meet Kabuto, one of our friends back in Konohagakure, the village that took us in. Friends. That is something new. But it didn't really surprise him given his current company. It feels. Pleasure to meet you, Kabuto-san. The woman replied in a friendly voice that made the pompadoured-haired pirate pout like an overgrown child. It feels gratifying. Nami no Kuni. Taking the last bite, Ace couldn't help but smile in appreciation for that day's meal. This boar will probably give him a few hours before his appetite may get the best of him again. Noticing a few small details in this new environment, seems like he doesn't have to worry about falling over the sea as majority of mass here are land unlike the blue seas where he came from. Though he feels like some has a very familiar presence like the pirates or marines back home. Those who wear those fancy headbands are more than just a civilian. From what he heard, they are ninjas. Greetings, stranger. The men requested to share his bonfire due to the downpour making it hard to start a fire, which isn't a problem for someone like him, so he graciously accepted their request. Sharing his fire to the inhabitants of this particular village is the least he can do. Carefully explaining his own predicament, he finishes his meal and put the scraps over his bonfire and converses politely with the newcomers. Makino-san's teachings remained despite everything. Even if he gave up being a pirate, his tattoo reminds him of the people who go to war to save him even after knowing the truth. And then there's Luffy. Covering his mark with a shirt will avoid unwanted attention on this strange new place, so he took his time to gather information before deciding on his next course of action. Ah, you mean Konohagakure. Old man Tazuna knows more about that place, so you may want to give him a visit. After that, he heard a tale of young children who were trained as ninjas. Luffy will have a blast knowing this story and save this country from a maniacal tyrant. He may have ignored the part about a teen who can transform into a flaming avian because from what he learned, devil fruits do not exist here. The said skill may be somewhat similar or a kind of transformation or whatnot those strange people knew. And that the pirate he knew who can transform into a phoenix already died because of him, and despite Marco's abilities, one cannot survive a hole in their chest. Ace thinks that exploring this land may be for the best. Then once he is tired enough, he will visit this place that kind old man recommended. Hiding the scroll securely, Ace looks a bit optimistic ever since that day. Despite the shackles tying him from his past, he finally decided to move forward. One step at a time. Learning that several of their crew members decided to retire didn't surprise Marco. Majority of their territories, those protected by Whitebeard's flag, were taken over by the traitor whose influence have corrupted several others and some upstart wannabes. The bastard had taken Oyaji's flag down just because he claimed to defeat the world's strongest. True that the Whitebeard pirates have lied low with their captain, retiring, due to his illness and wounds, but that didn't stop the remaining commanders to do what they can to protect the rest of their territories following Oyaji's wishes. Oyaji have come home, so we'll be able to find him in Sphinx. Izo explained, I was sent here to retrieve his medication. Tapping his chin, Thatch marked their new routes. It will take at least a month to get there, barring any unexpected disturbances, 2 months max. Maelstrom can get you there in less than a month as long as our stopovers are handled in a timely manner. The red-haired woman noted, and everyone looks at Kakashi, who notices their hard stares. Raising one brow to question their attention, Marco sighed and eases everyone's worry. The calm belt is something we may consider, knowing that some of you can use a jutsu that can emulate the wind. Ignoring the silver-haired Jonin's dark mutter, Marco pointed out a path they can take. Alternatively, we can go on a longer route that will allow us to visit Oyaji's remaining islands, gather information on what's the current situation, and inform the rest of our return. The female commander added that some of their crew are laying low, away from the Marines, watchful gaze, but are ready to sail once more if asked. However, the Phoenix didn't comment any further but added that they are free to choose what they want. If they do want to settle down or something, surely they can do so, right? Thatch's question is enthusiastic enough that didn't escape Izo's scrutinizing gaze, especially when the two, or rather three if she includes the young medic and Marco himself, had this silent conversation amongst themselves. The other woman is chuckling amusingly and patted the other man's silver-haired tresses when he groaned depressingly in response. So she asked the question because she never liked not knowing things. Are we talking about someone in particular? Thatch did laugh abashedly while Kakashi drops his head on top of his palm. Kabuto may have known something with that sly look in his eyes while Marco avoided her inquiry as if he didn't heard the question. How very suspicious. As I've mentioned, we will be passing by our remaining territories to check with the others. They are free to choose what they want to do from here onwards. And if they prefer to stay on land, we will not prevent or take it against them. TCH. If it comes to worst, she'll gut these men, Thatch most especially, for the answers she needed. The other woman did look at her meaningfully and asks for her input about their remaining territories. Before she can answer, an explosion was heard from the outside. Kira-sama. Kira-sama. It's him again. One of the redhead's crew rushed towards them in frantic worry. Hurrying towards the largest window on the room, the Uzumaki curses out loud and Kabuto may have winced a little hearing the woman swear like a pirate. She's probably one even if there's no black flag on her ship, though he did heard one of her crewmen the other day as they introduced themselves as privateers when Thatch bravely asks. Bounty hunters. Kakashi's eye flashed dangerously when the redhead looked back at him. She shook her head and frowned slightly when she turned towards them and answered in favor of the two shinobis. Dread filled the female commander's veins when she looked at the incoming ship herself. It's Garp, the Marine Vice Admiral. Oh. Who? When he heard what happened in Barati, he demanded Kobe to explain everything. The poor lad is still in shock but was able to tell him who he found, along with the man they thought was long dead. Dropping everything behind, he ordered his ship to embark right away, ignoring Sengoku's questioning look. From what he'd gathered, the pirates along with two unknowns traversed the Red Line and disappeared for a few days. It was just after they dealt with the world pirates. However, it was pure luck when one of his trusted spies found Whitebeard's female commander in Yakioku and he was able to tail them from there. It didn't surprise him when the ship that took the woman along was from that rowdy group of privateers he once worked with. It was Suru who recommended them to him for that particular mission and he dare say he's impressed. The redhead, well almost all of them are, is someone who painstakingly reminds him of his beloved wife, and if it wasn't for her demeanor, he might have think that she's related to that blasted Yonko. Their unconventional method of accomplishing their given tasks makes him wary for reasons unknown. Nevertheless, having them under close watch is something he does need to consider, knowing how the government wanted to keep a close eyes to those they deem are threats, and those pirates they want to stay out of their business. But it was this particular pirate who gave up his life to save his grandson that makes him want to turn his back on everything. So when Bogard reported that his target are in sight, he gave them his customary greeting and asked everyone to stay clear. He knew that they are loyal, but it would be best to keep the rest of his crew in the dark just in case their new fleet admiral decided to be petty. Helmeppo agreed to corral everyone along with his right-hand man, but Kobe is persistent. Giving in, he asked his subordinate to stay close to him, just in case. Passing over his men who were preparing a plank for them to pass through, he eyed them incredulously and jumps over the other ship with Kobe behind him. After ensuring that everyone are on their posts hidden, he turned to face the woman he grew to be fond of ever since they met each other. Uzumaki Kira looks cautious, just like his previous affiliations whenever they saw each other again, but unfazed enough to approach him, something he didn't understand. Is she somewhat related to the Whitebeard pirates without Suru knowing? Garp-san, fancy seeing you out of your office. Thought your new boss grounded you for life. Ha, I would like to see that brat try. Ignoring Kobe's reprimanding cough, he observed the tenseness of her shoulders. He did expanded his senses and located her crew below deck, and a few others that are hiding behind the doors she is somewhat shielding. And I knew who you were hiding behind those doors. So I would greatly appreciate it if you allow me to see him. And there's no need to punch my way through since I did not come here for a fight. Breathing deeply, he looked at her straight in the eyes. I do need to see him. To see for myself that the man who saved my grandson's life is indeed alive. He repeated firmly. He never begs. But, he is willing to try. Raising her brows inquisitively, Kira studied the old man before her. Monkey D. Garp did reminded her of her beloved grandfather, that is why they got along so fine, especially after they were introduced to one another on that first day. And that he is different from the rest of the Marines she knew. Suru Obaa is an exception since she's family. Truth be told, there are only a handful of Marines she can vouch for, and she can count them in all her fingers, including her toes, this man included. Yet his presence here is totally unexpected. Worrying even. But then his words started to make sense and she sighed resignedly and motioned for the older man to follow her inside. Kakashi did accompanied her and was eyeing the older man with suspicion and his underling. She did return his look with a calming smile as she led their visitors inside. The pirates Thatch and Izo are not armed, but they do look like they're ready to fight. Both stands beside the silver-haired medic from Konoha, while Marco himself leans near the large window, ready to take flight if needed. She's sure there wouldn't be any trouble knowing the said pirate, but she did cross her arms and patted the top of her favorite chair as she eyed the vice admiral. I would greatly appreciate it if no harm will fall on my ship. I just got her repaired the other day. Garp sighed and nodded, taking one of the chairs to sit upon it with a promise not to break anything. The maps they used earlier are already hidden, though she can sense a genjutsu placed on the said table. Kakashi did gave her a wink and stayed by her side to witness two of the most controversial groups in the Four Seas, wondering what each will do. With a nod to Izo, she led Thatch out of the room, much to his refutal, followed by Kabuto. The silver-haired Jonin did hesitate, but the redhead tugged him along, not before giving him a stern look. The young marine who came along, the vice admiral, may have attempted to set himself invisible, but Garp motioned him to go with the others. But, sir. After a few minutes, the young marine left hesitantly. Marco turned his attention to study the man before him. Monkey D. Garp does look older when he last saw him back in Marineford. Even if he knew why he's here, he doesn't understand why he would personally seek him out. Just the same, to be honest with you, I didn't even think of saving the boy, but knowing what Ace will do, my body just moved on its own. Giving him a bland stare, Garp shook his head and took a decanter from inside his jacket and two small plastic cups. He did eye him suspiciously after filling the cups with liquor, possibly thinking that he's too young to drink. Despite his current appearance, no one but Roger or Oyaji knows his exact age. About to curse the marine, he did pause when a cup was held towards him. Despite your excuses, I know that you knew why you did it, why that red-haired brat gave up his arm. Akagami no Shanks lost his arm for the same boy as well. Laughing at his bemused reaction, Garp forgo the cup and drank from the decanter itself. It's not public knowledge, and I never reported it anyway, but it happened during their brief stay back in my home island where Red Hair met my grandson, left a devil fruit in the open that gave Luffy his ability, and then he almost got himself killed after saving that boy. With a sigh, the marine emptied his drink with an air of wistfulness in his gaze. A terrifying ability he may have inherited from his parents. No words came after that. And for the first time since meeting the man, Marco finally enjoyed the silence with this particular marine. Perhaps he now understood why Oyaji and the Pirate King is fond of this marine. Thatch remained in the galley overlooking the conference room. Kabuto sat on his corner making a few notes of what are Oyaji's medications using the list Izo provided, while the woman herself is cleaning her guns. The young marine that came with Garp is sitting farther away from the group and is eyeing the same door. He did look at him twice, and when he noticed his stares, the man flushed shyly and avoided his gaze. Meanwhile, Kakashi is standing with the redhead who is gracious enough to accompany them on this journey. She also happens to be Naru-chan's long-lost aunt and the Jonin's old flame. Well, that alone is something he needs to understand. Maybe later. And thankfully enough, the Uzumaki is kind enough to humor his curiosity seeing his wordless questions. We are originally from the elemental nations. Uzushio is an island surrounded by whirlpools and harsh weathers, just like some of the islands here in Paradise, so coming here isn't much of a change. And because of our affiliation to a certain village, with past grievances that happened during the First and Second Shinobi World Wars, our village was attacked when Kumo and Iwa joined forces to eliminate Konoha's strongest ally. Kabuto added that the remaining survivors scattered across the elemental nations and were thought to be hunted down for experimentation because of their longevity and chakra reserves. Majority escaped here in the Blue Seas when my grandfather created those pillars and a seal to open a gateway separating the two dimensions. The remaining survivors escaped total annihilation and was able to live safely, away from those who wanted to harm us. They learned that those who came from here can safely pass through, and for those from the people of the elemental nations, as long as their intent isn't against the Uzumaki clan, they'll be able to travel into the Twin Pillars without any issues. Others who know the purpose of the pillars did attempted to pass through, some Kekkei Genkei hunters from Kumogakure. All who tried encountered a backlash which froze their chakra that lasts for several days. 2 sets of pillars were erected in the opposite ends of the red line which surprised the ninjas from Konoha. They learned that these pillars also served as a portal to each other for faster travel known only to the clan who created them. Other members of the Uzumaki clan was able to take root in each of the 4 seas. They flourished well in their chosen islands. Some become merchants. Others became explorers. There are a few that became pirates. While some who were trained in the ways of shinobi offered their skills and expertise to people who wanted to hire them for a price. So you're like a private contractors. Interestingly, it was Izo who asked the question. The Uzumaki nodded. Similar to a pirate but don't usually go against the government regardless how imperfect they are. Even so, there are still rules they strictly follow when accepting jobs. And if they deemed like it will be a harm to the clan, they will make sure to take precautions and eliminate all threats to their family no matter what. Awestruck from all these information, Thatch observed the woman before him. And before he can control his mouth, he commented about his favorite kunoichi and why Naruto was left on her own in a village that doesn't seems to like her. That statement made Kira-san's face change slowly. Entirely different from the way she proudly introduces her clan. Weirdly enough, Kakashi disappeared from their sight. The medic and Izo did pause whatever they are doing and frowned towards them and witnesses the Uzumaki's crestfallen reaction. My older sister was sent to Konoha upon the request of Mito-sama, the first Hokage's wife and my grandfather's oldest cousin. With a sigh, the woman took another photo from her jacket showing several faces, including a younger Kakashi with his ever-present mask and a blonde man who cannot be mistaken as the one who fathered their favorite kunoichi. She did visited a few times with these 2 morons. I also knew she was expecting. And then lost all forms of communication with her when we came here after the attack. Izo took a peek of her own. She could have disregarded the image since she didn't know the people in it maybe except for Kakashi-san and the woman herself, but she did a double take seeing a very familiar face. Is that Akagami no Shanks? Thatch's jaw dropped seeing the Yonko on the said picture. Same carefree expression, same smile, and younger, the scars that traitor gave are nowhere in sight. The marine's face paled upon hearing the pirate's name. Oh, him. Fondly she took another photo showing 3 children, all bearing the Uzumaki's trademark hair color. He's my twin brother. The tallest boy happened to look like the pirate they met and fought with several times in the past. Unmarred by any traces of his current life as a pirate. And then the realization finally hits him, more so than Marco's hockey-imbued kick, when he understood what that meant for everyone involved. Shanks is also Naruto's long-lost relative. Oh shit. Interlude. Izo. Izo thought she saw a ghost. Even in death, he never fails to irritate her. God, she misses him. So when she saw this man with the same face, with the same voice, her rage took the best of her and attacked the imposter. How dare they to use him against her? But when another lookalike showed up, she just lost herself to her grief. Damn them to hell. However, all her bullets never hit their intended target. Only one pirate can do that. And he was one of those that were taken by fate themselves. Just like Odin-sama. But then, only Marco knows how to fight her back. Damn it, Izo, I said calm down, yoi. Her opponent was able to close in, and regardless of the danger of close combat, the imposter was able to stop her hands. Disregarding her inhibitions, she fired her last bullet. And then, familiar flames surrounded the wound. Gasping in shock, she stares until the bluish-colored fire healed her enemy's flesh. It can't be. Marco. Relief can be seen in his eyes as he releases her hand. Dropping one of her guns, she tugged him closer and envelopes the teen in a one-armed embrace. So this is what he's referring to. She can't believe it. Are you calm now? Nodding, she wipes her tears away and looked at him, finally noticing that he's smaller and younger. But before Marco can explain, the other came back with the same sheepish look on his familiar face. All Izo can do at this point is throw her handheld gun at him. I miss you so. Chapter 39, Part 36. Arriving in Sphinx's territorial borders, Kira can see the Moby Dick from afar. It was surrounded by 2 smaller ships. One was an exact duplicate of the Whitebeard's primary ship, while the other is an unknown, probably an ally. Signaling one of her crew, the man activated a seal that will divert anyone's attention away. Just to be safe, Kakashi added mists, an ability he may have copied from a Kiri nin he fought with her niece. She did gave him an skeptical look. The silver-haired Jonin did gave her an eye smile which is totally out of character from the one she knew from before. You and I have a lot of things to talk about, Kakashi. Right. Marco took flight with that ability of his. He boarded the ship followed by Kabuto while Izo remained with the pompadour-haired pirate. Their crew knew that Thatch was dead, killed by a traitor. And him showing unexpectedly might receive unfavorable response from the rest. Better for Marco to handle them since he can heal himself if needed, and that as first mate, he knew how to calm everyone from the crew if worst comes to worst. Just like what happened with the female commander. What the hell is this mist? And who the fuck are you? He did remember casting a genjutsu on himself but still wonders how this one found him out already. It was a young man wearing a ruffled outfit like those movies he watched as a kid. A saber with a similar looking handguard that resembles his shirt as the weapon glinted dangerously towards him. Seems like he need to start understanding what this haki is, especially if that is constantly being used here unlike chakra. And just to be safe, he shunshined in a respectable distance. But then he felt a bit dejected when someone entered his range. With a sigh, he raised both hands in surrender as he felt the cold metal of another sword behind his neck. A fatal slice. Probably he can avoid it with just graze. There is a reason why he is feared in the elemental nations. And yes, he is that awesome, hypothetically speaking. But then something caught his visible eye from the other side of the ship. And before his head separates from his body, he immediately replaced himself with a log lest he is outlived by his cute little students. He's not even going to think about Sasuke at this time. The other one followed up with an attack of his own. Faster than anyone he knew, a sharp jab to his middle may meant to injure. But any form of wounds are unacceptable, especially to Kira-chan's eyes, so he did his best to avoid it. Coming to his aid, he did hid the surprise in his eyes, yet the other shinobi saw it regardless. Kabuto used his chakra scalpels to throw them off. But another one came into the fight and transformed himself into something indestructible to shield the others. Whoa, is that Diamond? Cursing internally, Kakashi was about to use a fireball jutsu when he finally decided to join the fray. All hostility in the atmosphere, gone in a blink of an eye when they saw the phoenix and his familiar colored flames. And here I thought you wanted me dead, muttering darkly, Kakashi crosses his arms and raises his visible brow towards the teen. Scoffing, the pirate glances at him surreptitiously and places both of them behind his back. Their human shield. Kakashi did heard the men gasp in shock and the astounded expressions of the other pirates and newcomers that came to obliterate the intruders, or so they thought they were. Edward Newgate may be at death's door and probably will not hesitate to walk right through it with no regrets. He had successfully lived his life to the fullest. His dreams started to come into reality after he met that boy. From what he was told, it was Marco's second rebirth. The blonde sure is stoic when he talked about his condition that day. Like he already gave up living even before he can actually live. So he invited the team to join him when his former crew disbanded after their captain's demise. Roger and Garp decided to team up that day, which was totally unexpected given their history with one another. He actually found Marco living in one of the abandoned houses on the outer edge of the island. One of the elders mentioned a new face that appeared during his absence. So the rest, as one would say, became history. At first, the boy rejected his presence and invitation. But he is persistent. Like Roger's straightforwardness, he knows what he likes and he wants to make sure this boy will be a part of his family. Strangely enough, the boy's reaction upon hearing his dreams is totally unexpected. Surprising him even as he was expecting mocking words and whatnot. It did took longer than what he anticipated. But the boy did gave in. Eventually. Not directly of course. And all it took was a fight against Sengoku that made the boy see he's worth it. But then he knew to himself, he will never make Marco sacrifice himself again for his sake. Or their crew. The said thought was futile as the boy is as hard-headed as any other pirate he knew. However, the duration of his absence isn't as noticeable for the new members of their crew, except for Vista and Jozu. And after they found him in the next island from Flevance just after its destruction, they learned how volatile Marco's temper is after the young man recalled his very own actions that day. He did get scolded till Kingdom Come, much to the amusement of his companions. So when he woke up that particular day, sadly eyeing the bottle of sake red hair brought the week before, and idly wondering why his daughter is taking too long to get his prescription. As usual, he sat on top of his second favorite chair overlooking his hometown to spend the rest of his day. From there, he can feel everyone on the island. Their content, their happiness, that even if life is hard, they do their best to make it better. Smile despite the hardships, so even after he's gone, he will make sure they are taken care of, along with the rest of their remaining territories. I'll never get tired looking at this view, but then you are still blocking the other side, yoi. Laughing out loud, the famed captain of the Whitebeard pirates glances towards his eldest son with affection. Took you long enough, brat. With a fond look, his wayward son smiled and approaches his side. Well, I happen to got lost in the road of life, so you just have to deal with it, Oyaji. I got so many things to share to you. Welcome home, son. Marco knew that facing everyone again will probably surprise him to an extent. And perhaps they will be too, especially now that he, miraculously, came back from the dead. A hole in the chest still has 0% survival as per Kabuto's understanding. Add to the fact that he came back with Thatch in tow. Now his friend's own circumstances is indeed a miracle of its own. Granted that Thatch found himself in the elemental nations, in Nami no Kuni itself, where he was taken care of by the bridge builder who had hired Naruto's team for protection, leading them to one another. Seems like fate have plans for them, for him most especially, and it got something to do with his blue-eyed blonde Kunoichi. Catching a glimpse of Vista and Josu's reaction when they saw him younger, priceless. Then what everyone did to Thatch after he showed his face to the crew, utterly hilarious. The commanders cried after they saw their brother. Even as pirates, they're still human, and a few other species that Oyaji adopted in between. They were joined by Haruta and the rest of Thatch's division. During an impromptu party, he noticed something, or rather someone missing. Where's Ace? The sudden lack of noise with the others avoiding his gaze, Marco felt dread when no one answered his question. He turned to look at Thatch, whose color and jovial expression completely left his face, with Oyaji's faraway look beside them. Ah, just what he needed, great. ... Seeing the Yonko again in close proximity makes him want to hide behind his woman's back. And this doesn't count the first few meetings with the said man. Not because he is scared or anything, a cipher pull agent was trained not to feel fear, thank you very much. Though he doubt his Remy can cover him entirely, or even his shadow, since she's a foot smaller than 5 feet. Despite that, her wonderful personality still outshines everything. And she's not even afraid to be in this particular place surrounded by pirates as she marched directly towards the most intimidating man on the island. She even called him, old geezer, and made his insides coil in trepidation when his wife scolded the world's strongest former for missing his dosage that morning. The man does look remorseful though. Relax, Oyaji doesn't go around biting feisty little women no matter how she nags, ouch. Thatch blurted out as Izo cuffs him by the neck and followed the petite woman before she left with a raised brow in his direction. Muttering darkly to himself, the commander claps him by his shoulder and led him towards the second most dangerous pirate in the island. But then, his mouth started to have a mind of its own. You turned into a little boy. Did he blurted that out loud? Kraus would like to think that those words didn't came out of his mouth, but judging from the astounded reactions of the people surrounding him, he'll definitely ignore Thatch's snickering and the man turned teen's resigned exasperation. He does hope that they won't tell his wife this latest fiasco of his. Ah, so that's what you did too, huh? Haruta commented to the laughing pirate in amusement. What? At least he didn't call him an infant like I did, ow. ... Joggling pieces of pebbles on one hand, Marco raised one brow towards his brother with a silent warning. Turning his attention away from his rowdy sibling/best friend, he focused his observation to the newcomer. Izo already told him of the couple Oyaji is fond of. One happens to be a retired cipher pull agent and that little girl he found on that other rebirth so many years ago. He did recall the said boy from the before, and never did he imagine that the same one who escaped his path retook it for reasons he himself may have contributed in passing. He did remember something about that conversation they last shared. So after his brothers dragged Thatch away, Marco nodded to the other man and walked towards Oyaji's house, where the woman who came with him dragged his father figure into. Aren't you gonna admonish me for the choices I made? What I'd become? Orion Kraus asked shakily, and if it wasn't for the man's voice, Marco would have responded differently. Just the same, he took the time to answer truthfully and gave the man a considering look. You took a path knowing what it will give you regardless of the things you need to do and what it may cause you. It is because you vowed to become someone who can protect this happiness you found here. Is that correct, Yoi? Nodding, the man had this odd look on his face and Marco sighed contemplatively. I'm not your elder to lecture you of your life choices, even if I did guide you that day or may had influenced your decision, it was you and you alone who made that choice. I suppose I did, but, grunting in response, he stopped walking and finally faces the man, cataloging all the changes. A mannerism he may have acquired since meeting Hiruzen and that mummy. Quote. With a frustrated look, Kraus tucked both hands in his pockets. But before he can retort a remark that will probably kill him in the end, the red-haired woman that came with the unknown men approaches. We got a situation and I think you may or may not like it, Marco-san. For whatever reason, the former cipher pull agent felt relief even if the argument he has was never addressed. Just the same, he took his leave with a polite bow towards the woman, or Remy will scold him again for being rude, and left. Even if the said news is something he wants to hear, he can never overstay his welcome since this island is still pirate territory, with him being an agent of the government even if that was eons ago. Watching the man's retreating back, Marco turned towards the Uzumaki with a questioning look in his eyes. With a frown, Kira returns his gaze with a thumb motioning the direction the other man went into. Are you sure it's okay for him to be here? The man is a government dog and even though he's retired, his loyalties are questionable at best. Shrugging his shoulders dismissively, not even wondering where she got the said information, the phoenix walked along the mangrove near Oyaji's home. You didn't come here to ask me about our affiliation with the said man, are you? Huffing in response, Kira took a baby transporter snail from her pouch and dialed a number. After a few rings, an unfamiliar voice answered. Kira-sama, it is good to hear from you again. Cousin Ira, I hope the old coots aren't giving you a hard time, though I'll be dropping by in a few weeks as Yui and the guys have acquired new merchandises for the village. The Kusen laughs in response and Marco tried to divert his attention away by taking his own communication device. Naruto's handheld mirror shines playfully from the moon's ambient light. Applying chakra into the seal, the mirror glows and despite the foggy images, he can faintly hear her voice. I never fancy a pirate like you valuing his looks over anything, perhaps Thatch-san is already given him. Before he can reply, the Kusen acknowledges him respectfully. It is an honor to finally meet you, Marco-san. The Uzumaki chuckled and added that Ira's family is in charge of the West Pillars. With that sinking feeling inside his gut, Marco thinks he knew what they are about to say. A certain person was granted access to pass through the gateway with a recommendation from Shirojiji, one of the surviving council members of our clan, Kira stated as she observes his reaction. The very same person who was involved in the War of the Best and targeted by the world government for his existence alone. The cousin also told them that his grandfather found Ace and may have taken a liking to the said pirate because a scroll was given to the said man for safe accommodation in Konoha. Pinching the bridge of his nose, his hold on Naruto's mirror tightened. God, he does hope he can hear her voice right now. So you mean to say, pausing slightly, the pirate held the mirror towards the redhead. Ace is now in the elemental nations. Kira took the mirror curiously and nodded. Her own eyes did widen seeing the seals etched on its back. What are the chances that Naruto will meet the idiot, Yoi? Knowing the blonde's sensitivity to hockey, she'll definitely meet or find that man one way or the other. The scroll itself serves as a beacon to any Uzumaki within a certain range. If her sensing abilities is as exceptional as a veteran Uzu tracker from what you've told me, she will sense the scroll and in extension, him, no matter what. The thought itself is comforting. With a sigh, he looked at the clouds above and hopes for the best. I'll leave him in your capable hands, take care of him, alright. He is going to be quite a handful. A town or two away from Uzushio's islands. Naruto turned around as if she heard Marco's voice. Ignoring the perverted sage's dark grumbling when she absent-mindedly answered his inquiry, she traces the seal behind her compact mirror, studying it very carefully and mentally recited each symbol she had written while returning her attention back to her Fuinjutsu journal. Knowing that something is missing, she need to recall what specific component is needed to make their communication device work over this distance, damn it. She already sent a clone back to double-check the seals on the pillars thinking that the answer is written somewhere in those stone monoliths. Jiraiya sighed and threw a bottle of water towards his goddaughter. He already guessed what is keeping her occupied ever since her compact mirror glowed and that pirate's voice was heard from it. He can't believe that despite the distance, Naruto's communication device worked even if the images and the voice aren't perceived quite clearly. Thanking his lucky stars, interdimensional communication is still a work in progress. The mirror the girl left back in Konoha, a matching pair was given to the Uzumaki household, and a dedicated one for Tsunade Heim worked spectacularly well during an earlier call report that impresses the third Hokage and the Jonin commander upon learning its purpose. Thus Naruto was commissioned to make a similar mirror that can be used to communicate in long distances within the elemental nations that'll prevent possible interference to their messenger hawks and ensure the confidentiality of each operative and their missions. However, the blonde's focus right now is that mirror of hers. Seeing that Pirate's face is somewhat a priority right now. Something he needed to work out on. A delaying tactic if he needs to be clear about it. Gather your stuff kid, we are nearing the rice country and there's someone I need to meet. Muttering incoherently to herself, Naruto started gathering her things when they heard a commotion. Thinking that it doesn't concern them, she eyed the older man in suspicion. Raising both hands in mock surrender, the pervert re-enumerate his duties. At the same time, a young man with dark hair passes by them followed by a trail of angry mob of men and women whom the said culprit took food and ran away from without paying of course. Portgas D. Ace couldn't believe these people. Don't they know that he's a pirate? Even if his mark is hidden, oh well. And in memory of his sworn brothers, he kept their tradition eat and run whenever possible. Luffy and Sabo will be so proud. Passing by a group of travelers, the pirate laughs in response while avoiding the people who are chasing him and a few rocks thrown his way. It was a brief second as the two go past each other yet Naruto stopped briefly. Whoosh! Exclamation mark. Turning around, she saw the retreating back of a young man who is possibly the cause of all this commotion. Shrugging her shoulders hesitantly, feeling that something is amiss, the Uzumaki followed the perverted Sanin ignoring his derogatory tirades about her pirate and continues to review her seals mentally. That if she is actively listening, she may have argued beaten the old man for badmouthing her pirate. If only Ace didn't wore his shirt, the blonde should be able to see his mark. The very same mark that she is fully familiar with. Interlude, Kabuto 2. Kabuto curiously looks at everyone as he sits beside Marco and quietly inquired the connection between the two who are arguing with one another, mostly the female commander, as Thatch tries to placate her but failing spectacularly. Laughing in quiet humor, the Phoenix described the two's relationship. From another's perspective, the two can be identified as close friends, somewhat more than the word itself. That Izo and Thatch bicker like a married couple. Their exact relationship is still an enigma to some of their crew members, unlike a few, mostly the commanders. I suppose you haven't met someone that can push all your buttons and make you want to worship the place she stood upon, Laughing at his bemused expression, Marco turned to face the swordsman, Vista, to ask something. Rolling his eyes at him, he returns his gaze to the heart of the party. While their captain sits behind them conversing with Kakashi and the red-haired woman who happens to be another familiar acquaintance of the said pirate. Even from this distance, he can feel the steady thrum of his chakra. His warmth. Now that he thought about it, the pirate captain's aura is similar to the girl they left back in the Elemental Nations. Not that he will ever voice that out loud. Putting aside Marco's question, perhaps he never did meet someone of the opposite sex that interests him. Though seeing Urushi again after so many years, his brother had teased him for taking his time away along with his duties, especially with all the women that surrounds him, purposely ignoring the Phoenix's murderous glare when Naruto was mentioned. No, I haven't met that person yet. Just the same, he will probably welcome her into his life in case he meet her one of these days. Who knows? She might also accept the skeletons he hides in his closet.